Hi, it's Stacy with So Steady, and we are here with the star of the show, So for Less's Mike.
I hardly think I agree with that, but hello, everybody.
Well, Mike, tell us a little bit about these amazing new templates that we're introducing today.
Well, thank you, Stacy. And as Stacy mentioned, we are super excited to be launching Fire and Ice, a project that is at least 6 months, probably even more than that, 6 months in the works. We've got a star-studded lineup for everyone today. We're bringing Donelle McAdams, Shanna Rendon, and also Diane Russell. And guys, if that's not enough, we've got a very special launch edition. So if you guys get both template sets, not only are you going to save 20% off, you're going to also get exclusive access for life to Diane's Fiery Day class that you're going to see today. Now, if you guys miss part of it, you got to get up, you got to get down, whatever life happens. Here's the cool thing. We're going to be rerunning this all weekend long. You've got 48 hours to rewatch today's education. And today's education is going to be provided completely free of charge, even if you don't get the templates. But guys, there is so much that you can do with these templates. I couldn't believe that Fire and Ice wasn't offered in the past. I really couldn't. When I went to go search through literally the thousands of different templates that Stacy and company offer, there was no Fire and Ice. So we were very happy to go ahead and design these. You can use them in template. You can use them in the circular fashion that you see on so many different classes, but you can also use them in some pretty exciting borders. So we're really excited to see what Donelle has got in store for us today. She's going to be using the ice templates. And from what I understand, she was just saying that she is going to be using some templates. So we're just really excited. And both both Donnell and I are a little bit under the weather, so you have to forgive our voices here. But Donnell, so excited to have you on board today.
Thanks, Mike. I'm glad to be here. And yeah, just forgive our voice a little bit. We'll be fine. As you can see right here, the ice set is a two-piece template set, and it comes with this folder, and it has instructions for doing some of these designs. So this will get you started. Now, the one I'm doing today is totally different, and I am going to be doing it on a blue fabric. And I decided because it was ice, that's the reason I went with the blue. And I have put on the back of that blue fabric Template Fuse. Now, I didn't go clear out to the edge because I'm not going to need it clear out to the edge, but I've put it totally in the center there. And then I have a layer of white underneath there, which is what's going to be revealed in the process of doing this. Now, the thing you need to remember is I know many of you pre-wash your fabric, or at least you press your fabric ahead and you press it with starch. It's okay to put starch on this top layer, which I did because I'm using Frixon markers. So you can see I use the Frixon fine liner. And as you guys have heard me say many, many times, there it is, many, many times, you need to put 2 layers of starch. Put a layer of starch and press it, put another layer and press it. And I did that on this one right here, but I did it after I had adhered this to the wrong side. I didn't want anything to keep this from clinging or sticking, or fusing is the best word for it, to the back. So I put this on first, and then I did my starching. Now, when I say starch, most of you think of Best Press or Starch Savvy, or even just the premium faultless starch or whatever. Any of those will work for making it so that these lines will press right off. So after that, of course, I've got it layered up with my batting and my backing. Now I'm using a very lightweight fusible backing, but I've not fused anything because I didn't really want it fused at this point. When I press it all after I'm finished and I've done all my cutting, that's when it will get fused. So for those of you that are wondering, I've got a 22-inch square here, and I have that square of template in the middle. Now I can't remember for sure. It's either 15 or 17 inches, but it's just a square of that template. Now, If I was doing this just for myself and I was the only one that needed to see this, I would probably have used my white chalk, and I would also have used a white thread. Now today I'm going to be using a darker thread because I want you to be able to see it. And if it's not dark enough as we get started, I'll probably take it out and put black in, because my whole purpose of this class today is to teach you. And if you can't see it, you can't understand it. Now, all the way around, I have taken pens and I've put those around there to hold all my layers together. Now, here is the center. I've already found the center, and I've marked my 8 lines with my 8-point crosshair square. Now, if you're joining us new today, some of these things are going to sound, what in the world is she talking about? Just remember, we have a ton of education to get you started, and that's all on our university. I'm going to show you here, for those of you that may not understand what an 8-point crosshair is, how I found the middle, and I went ahead and drew all those lines. Now, I've taken the time to extend those lines with my centering ruler. So I needed those lines longer than even that 12-inch would give me. So I just put this on the center spot, lined it up, and continued those lines on out. Now, if you have questions, Stacy is there watching what's coming through. So it would be just fine for you to ask questions if you have them. So she'll relay them to me. Now let's talk a little bit about these templates. So it kind of looks like the letter Z, kind of a fashion size of it. A couple things I want to point out to you. I'm going to be using the large template, which today.
Hey Donelle, can you hear us okay? Because we can't hear you right now.
Okay, we can hear you now, I think. No, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and give her a call. Just one sec. Hey, Donelle, I can hear you now. Donelle,
Yes.
I can hear you now.
I'll see if I can get back in. Are we good now? I'm going to hope that you can hear me now.
Sound is back. We are good.
All right. I don't know where we got lost, but I'll repeat a few of the things just to make sure. I am using the large A template. Right now I have it upside down, and I have placed a ruler sticker here. Now this is for the third or the second move that we're going to make. So where's that ruler sticker? Well, it's just kind of random, but I placed it. Well, now it's not as random as you think. It's exactly 1 inch from that bottom here. So I've got the big cut, the little cut, and on that slope, there is 1 inch from the end. I put a sticker there. Now I want you to notice that if you're using this side, this is not a straight edge. This comes down and kind of it's not curves, but it makes a move that makes it so that it's more slanted. That's not the edge we're using. We're using this one over here. So when you can see the word so for less, we got so steady, we got so biz, and we got so for less. We got the 3 so's here today. So I'm going to turn this around. And the first time I'm not using this. Remember I said it would be for the second time. So I'm going to put my template right up to the back of my foot. So just as a little explanation, if I were to put my ruler across the back, my template's just touching that back. Now you don't have to do that every time. Your eyesight will catch it. And remember, this is ice. Ice is not going to be every single one alike and perfect and whatever. So if it's somewhere close there, you're fine. And what I'm going to then do is I'm going to pull this piece down here. Let me get you out here so you can see it. So that this comes over, so that that piece right there is just over the line. Okay, so we've got this little spot that is our ending spot. And it's not going to put our needle in that line, but that's not going to make any difference. This just makes it an easy way for us to line up. So I'm lined up back there, and I'm lined up right here. This is the big cut of that, not the little cut like this one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to now stitch. And I'm going to stitch right back to that spot there. And I think you can see that. I just dropped my ruler, so I had to get that. So I'm going to flip this around. Just like, I shouldn't say flip it, I'm going to move it around. And this time, there's a little piece right there that it can hug into. I'm going to make that point up there lay right on that same line. Okay, so I'm making that point, lay on the line, and I'm going to stitch out to that arrow. When I get out there, I have now got kind of a jagged piece there. I am going to take, because there's no line on here long enough, I'm going to take my ruler and get my spacing gauge. I'm going to turn it so you can see it sideways there. And I'm going to come right back to that center. So we have to allow, and you're probably going to see this one. That's not it. It's that one right there. But we're going to make sure that we allow that 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to stitch right back there to the middle. Now we're going to do the same thing 7 more times. And the reason I am telling you all this is because of the fact that we're going to make this so that when we can then cut this out so that we can have kind of an ice looking design because of the way it's kind of a crystal. And so this is going to be rather thin in here. So I'm probably going to add some more after we get this part stitched. So remember I said this one goes right up against there. This down here is going to touch right on that side there. Because we're just going to be doing this on every single line. I'm going to rotate this around. I'll turn it so you can see it. Hug that. Put this right on that line there, that same line. and stitch out that direction. Now I am wondering, I might have put that on the wrong side. No, I didn't. I put it on the inside. We're still good. We're going to measure back to that center and allow that 1/4 inch. So I think you can start to see this developing. All right. Up against there. Right beside that. Just simply rotate that around. I think I'll get my original thread snipped out here. Whenever you're going back to that center over and over and over, you're going to have plenty of stitching there to not have to worry about that. And remember, I've got this on that line. Measure again. I'm going to take this pen out because it's kind of in my way. Back to the center, the 1/4 inch. Now this is one of those that I think would really be fun to do some metallic thread with, and then after we were finished, we could also use some crystals and things to embellish our design. Obviously that would all come after you did the cutting. It's so nice that it's built in to have a little bit of a stopping point, I guess is the best way to say it. So you don't have to worry about stitching too far and kind of falling off, so to speak. Ooh, went a little too far, but it's a crystal. I'm not going to worry about it. Reach back and get your measurement. Get back to that center. Rotate it. And then the inside right there is what's going to be on the drawn line, which we call registration lines. And only because the template's not quite long enough.
Hey, Donelle, there is a question. Is there a way that you might be able to switch over to a darker thread? Because it is really, really hard to see that right now.
Sure. Let me get back to this center and I'll do that.
Okay, perfect.
So we're back here in the center. I'm just going to go ahead and cut that thread. And let's see. I'm going to go with black because I don't know that there's much darker than black.
Yeah, you can kind of see it, but yeah, I think it'll be a lot easier to see with the black as you're stitching it, you know.
All right, I always like to have my thread down below my foot. Let's go right in here. Put that foot down and that needle down. And pull our bobbin thread up. All right, let's see if this works any better. I think it does.
Oh, yeah. That looks great.
Okay. I'm going to turn this around, line it up with that line. You can see right now I'm touching right on the line.
We had a good question come in. When you rotate your first pass to the arrow, are you going to the next registration line?
No. I'll explain that in just a second here. I think now that you can see it, maybe it'll be a little easier as I explain it. So now that I've got a registration line straight out here, this would be like if I had just started at 6 o'clock, okay? I mean, started the design at 6 o'clock. I'm taking this and putting it against that foot. And then this piece is just so that the inside edge of that is touching that line. Now, I know that's not the one you asked about, but the next one will be. So I'm going to stop right there. My next registration line is clear over here. And even if I had put the ones in between here, it doesn't match with that. So what I'm doing is I'm just turning this until that touches the foot. But back here, that point that's in the template is going to go over and meet that line. So that point is right on that line. So hopefully that makes it a little bit more understandable, because there's a line, there's this, our next line is not till it's clear over there. So that means our other line would have been in the middle. So it doesn't touch any of the registration lines. It's a long way back there, so I'm looking through the middle of my machine. Yeah, I guess you can see that a lot better. Okay, so we're going to take this one again, line it up out here, make sure it's back far enough on our foot. I'm simply rotating this so that the point is on the line. Make sure if you're using your centering ruler that you've got some stable tape there on it, just because of the fact that you've got to have something to hold this so that while you're doing this, I can only put my finger right there when I get started, but the whole thing has got pressure on it, so it's grabbing onto that. Now I can see that this is quite a bit different. I'm going to stitch over this just for at least one of these so that we can see it a little bit better. Okay, so we have got that finished. And because I can see there's a pretty good opening here, I think what I'm going to do is fill in between there before I start cutting. So whether I use my large one or my small one will be determined here. I think I'll use the small one, and I'm going to use it backwards. So we've got it going two different ways here. So let's go ahead, which means this would be a template where you could put the piece of stable tape on both sides, because if I'm going to use it this way, I'm going to need to have that tape on the opposite side. So let's flip this over and go ahead. And for those of you that are new to stable tape, this is what we recommend so that you then have control of your templates and it grabs your fabric as you move it around. Now, what I found with these is I like one of those in the center of this. So let's see what we can do here. I'm going to take this, I'm going to put that foot back down, bring that thread back up. And this one I'm going to go, so I'm going to touch back there at that edge. I do not want to stitch in where I'm going to cut this out. So I've got to make sure that that is less than 1/4 of an inch. So let's just check it real quick. It's going to be right on it to begin with, but as we stitch, it will be away from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn this just a little bit. And I'm going to come back to right there. And I'm going to flip this completely around so that we can see where we're stitching to. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it join this right here. So I'm actually going to make a line parallel to what I've got right there. So I'm just coming in and I'm going to join right back with what I've previously stitched and stitch right back down to the center. So now we have added, where do we add it? I guess we've added it right in there. Okay, so I'm going to get that small one again. Got to see which way I did it. I'm going to do the big one this time. So I'm putting that right at the back, doing the same thing I did before. I think this is going to work even better. And then from that point, I'm going to flip this back around and I'm going to come down right to the line and stitch back to the middle. And I think I'll just do this maybe 2 more times, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to cut it. So I'm using the bigger side here, right there at the back, moving it over so it's right along that line. Now, once you get going on this, you wouldn't turn this. You just use your ruler and stitch to the back. But first of all, you couldn't see anything if I did that. And second of all, it's kind of difficult when you're first starting. All right, one more. Let's see. Back at the back there. Flip this around. That was kind of tricky because I couldn't see the line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it right there.
All right, Donelle's going to come back in right now. Bear with us.
I'm back.
And I can hear you. You sound great.
All right, well, that's good. So I was explaining what you do if by chance you slit that under layer. And like I said, I was saying that it would be best to, as soon as you slit it, by accident, of course, just stop. Don't get antsy. I would go on and work on some of the others, because after you actually cut these out, you can come back and decide, does it really show? Because obviously you got to remember that, if it's white like that, it's probably going to show. But you could take, if your slit's real small, take a little bit of Templey fuse, just a little teeny tiny bit, and use the pointer of your seam ripper and stick it underneath there, and then just use, hopefully maybe your little mini iron, the point of it, to fuse that back down. Because if it's just a slit, you can probably make it so it hardly even shows. So I'm going to cut a couple more of these slits. You notice that I'm just kind of picking at that a little bit till I can get that fabric and I can bring it up. And then I'm just going to take it and run my pointer back and forth. If it runs easily, then you don't have that caught underneath the white, because if it was underneath my peeker fabric, the white in this case, it would be getting caught in batting. And so it wouldn't run side to side very easily. But if you've got a good sharp seam ripper, you're going to be able to do just what I'm doing. Kind of go back and forth, see if it's easy. Sure enough, it is easy. And I guess I've got enough cut here. Now, when I cut mine out, I use these little embroidery scissors that allow me to tweeze back here, so I don't have to get my fingers into some big scissors to do this. You will find what method works best for you. Now, I turned this around because this is the easier way for me to do it. And when I'm actually cutting this out on a project, I sit down in a different area than I am now. It's kind of like sitting at your kitchen table. Make sure there's no cloth on it or anything like that. And then you can simply rotate this around. So easy to get that done. Now, the question always comes, how much do I cut off? Well, you obviously want to cut up so you're going to be able to see it. And that's why I like these little scissors, is because they pretty much rest right where they need to go. So you can see that I'm getting just a little bit of fabric left by my seam. Now, the one thing you need to remember when you're using these, I like the ones that are serrated because they grab my fabric. That's just a little hint when you're getting them. They kind of grab the fabric. You do not want to push your scissors. Believe it or not, people don't realize that until I mention it, that a lot of times they are pushing their scissors. Kind of like when you take a good sharp pair of scissors and cut wrapping paper, you just kind of slide them through there. That's not what you want to do with this, because that will cause fraying. So I'm going up right here as far as I think I can go. And I'm going to turn it back around because I can't really get in that slice right there. Let's see where I'm cut. Right there we go. Now I'm going to leave that like that because I like that point, especially because of what we're calling this. You could cut that off. It's got fusible on the back, so when I fuse it, that will lay flat. Now this is the little one that we added.
Oh, I love the points on that. That really comes through nicely when you do the template.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to do this one this way, because of the fact that it's pretty easy to get started with this one, and it's going to give you a good effect. And the other thing, I hate to say it this way, if when we get this to the point where it's all cut out and we think it needs more, we can always go back and add it, as long as we have not pressed this down. So you can see I had just a little piece there that needed to be removed. Now we're back to one of these long ones, and this is just a marking line there. So I'm just going to kind of take a shortcut and go over to that side, because for me, this is the way that I like to do it. And like I said, if you're sitting at a kitchen table or something, you're going to be able to just kind of spin your project around. Right now, I'm not sure I could find that much space anywhere, but that's just telling on me. I can go a little farther on this one. If you've never done Templey before, don't let it scare you like it did me. I stayed away from it for a long time. If you've got the right tools, it is very easy because you can see how I'm just putting that right down there. And I'll pick this one up when I get it finished so that you can see what I'm talking about. Remembering on this one, I want to leave that little point. But you can see it's just a matter of going right beside that, and it will leave what you want. Now, right there, I've got a little spot that kind of takes away from it until I cut up there. But you can see how close I'm cutting. To the fabric. So let's cut just a few more. If anybody's got any questions, now would be a good time to ask, because there's not much more I can tell you from what I've already told you, but I sure could answer your questions.
No, I think that people are just loving seeing the cutaway because it does make a really nice contrast and you can really see the design.
I thought it was interesting that you sent to me today. Said, why don't you make a pond and make it look like it's crackling? I thought that was a pretty good idea. And
Yeah.
another thing I thought would be fun would be to offset where the center is. So, you know, do something the same as what I'm doing here, but not make it dead center. So it would look more like a, oh, I don't know, more like a crystal that had grown on a window during the, you know, the whole
Totally.
thing.
Yeah. That's where my head was going to icicles.
Yeah.
And then, just kind of that winter theme, whether it's a pond or icicles or
And that's
just,
kind of why I chose the blue, because of the fact that that's what made me think of that too. So you're going to get that effect. If I was doing this again, I hadn't remembered that this got so thin, I would have probably cut that and stopped it about there, because,
oh,
or
sure.
I could have made this wider and come in there, because the first time I did it, when I was just kind of playing with it, I didn't cut it out. So I totally forgot about how thin that got. But we've got a lot of space right there that I could have made that wider. But when we get into doing this, you guys will decide how much you want your thread to show. Obviously, I needed mine to show so you could see it. But some of this, you can match that thread so much that you really can't even tell that there's any thread there. Now, it's not offensive in this one. It even looks good right up close. But you can decide this was going to be one that you could have used white thread on. You could obviously use a matching thread. One of the ones that I had out to use, I'll show you because I think it's really pretty. Oh, maybe there it is. It kind of has different colors in it, and I thought that would be pretty on it too. So a lot of options that you can do. Just remember, as Mike said, there's some things you can do with borders with this. I think the fire, you're going to have fun looking at the things they've done with the fire, and just playing around with them. That's why I think it's been fun to challenge myself on some of the templates, like what we're doing tomorrow. If you join us tomorrow, I'm going to be doing angel wings. And what I'm doing has nothing to do with angels or wings, but I think you're going to really like the effects you can get, and how you can, in my particular, what I'm going to be showing is one of them is how you can use those angel wings in a triangle, a setting triangle. And some of you probably are going, oh my gosh, I've needed something for a setting triangle. I definitely want you to join us for that. But yeah, a lot of different things you can do with all of our templates, and playing around on paper with those stitching line discs. If you've never purchased stitching line disc, add that to your order today, because that's going to give you a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak, because you're going to be able to stitch things out, or not stitch things out, but draw things out so you don't have to stitch them out. So like I said, the only thing I forgot about was the fact that I was going to cut it out, so I needed a bigger space there. So anyway, that pretty much does what I was going to do today. And unless anybody's got any more questions.
Honestly, I don't see any other questions. I think folks are loving the idea of, kind of this winter type of design. And I just love that we're finally bringing some elements to our quilt designs. I'm I'm big on like the landscape quilts and that sort of thing. So as I think about that and how I can incorporate these templates, even as we're doing, true template, or the reverse applique or true applique
Right.
template, I think that both of those could offer some really, really fun ideas, in being able to, use those templates in ways that maybe we would have to get a lot more creative if we didn't have a true fire or true ice template now in our lineup.
Well, that I saw somebody's template the other day, or project the other day on Westerly by me, and
Yeah.
it was a good show of the fact that you don't have to do the same thing all over. In some place, I think they had like a flower design, and then somewhere else they did some background fills, and
Yeah.
nobody said it has to be the same everywhere. And I think we get caught up in that thinking that it does. And this is going to allow you to put some, I mean, I look at this and I think, if this was like maybe even just all of that there cut out, that would be just kind of almost on a horizon type thing. There's just so many different things you could do with it. So thanks to Mike for bringing us these templates. But
Mike told me he wants to give one of them away.
All right.
So what we're going to do is we're not going to do it live. We're going to do a giveaway where we're going to post it on Facebook. So we're going to have you head over to the So City Facebook page. And what we want you to do is we want you to go ahead and share the feed today with folks. And then, of course, tell us, what do you think you would do with this template? Like, what does this template inspire you to want to quilt or make or finish in your sewing room? Someone said that there's no icicles there. They just have cold feet. And yes, I have cold feet. Everything is cold right now. So I definitely feel like I'm inspired to create some wintry type of design. So this would do it for me. So stay tuned. I'll post a link to that shortly where you can go ahead and enter to win the ice templates by telling us what you think you would do with these templates. We'll be announcing that winner on Monday. Just so you know, that super deal, buy both of the template sets and get 20% off and get the free class. That is going through the weekend. So you have a little bit of time to decide if that's something that you have to have, while you can get that discount with the 20% off and the class as well. That class that we're giving away with it is going to be the Fiery Day. And then we'll have this instruction as well that Donelle provided for the ice template. So we'll give you a little bit of both that way, along with, of course, the extra 20% off for buying both of them. So look for that link shortly to win the ice templates. And Donelle, we're going to take everybody over and we're going to start showing off the fire templates now.
All right.
So now it's time to get warm, guys. We're going to go stand by a fire and get warm, okay?
Everyone have fun.
Thank you so much, Donelle. We appreciate you joining us this morning. And so we are back live. We've got Mike here. Mike, you're on the show. And we've got our next educator, Shanna, here today. So we're going to go ahead and let Mike and Shanna talk a little bit about, well, Mike, if you want to wrap up the ice, and then Shanna, we'll have you dive into your project here as well. Mike, you are muted and you will have to unmute yourself.
Here I am. So, guys, that was stunning, is what I was saying. I mean, one of the things that we were thinking about when we created that ice template was that it doesn't have to be all the same shape. In fact, we were kind of hoping that it wouldn't be. It's so often in all of the ruler work, you guys, we all do it. We want everything to look perfect. And then in this situation, I'm actually challenging you to not be perfect. Make it different. That's the way that ice is. And I think that you'll find some stunning results, just as Donelle showed us. And I was just marking in the comments, I think that it'd be really cool to see something like that. Even on like a winter themed tote, you could do that pretty easily and have a really unique bag that nobody else had. So really fun to see what Donelle has created. And I'm really curious to see what you guys make with it. And as Stacy was mentioning, you guys have through the weekend, you've got 20% off if you buy that exclusive launch edition. You do get all 6 templates, and you're going to get that Fiery Day class that is coming up just in a moment here with Diane Russel. But for now, I'm really excited to see what Shanna's going to be showing us. I've seen some examples beforehand, but I can't wait to see it live. So Shanna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. I have to share with you, Mike, before we jump over. Someone said that the ice made them inspired to make a wrap that could be put around a heating pad or an ice pack to
Yeah,
warm up in the cooler. Yeah, I love
why
that.
not?
That's great. Yeah, then you know what it is. It's marked with the symbol.
Yep,
I love that. All right,
me
so
too.
we've got Shanna here. Shanna, thank you so much for joining us. We are excited. Shanna is going to be sharing today something that I think is pretty cool. She's going to be sharing with us some of her gorgeous sunflower designs that she
Yeah.
has created with the fire templates. Is that right, Shanna? You're muted.
Unmuted. So yeah, yes. I had a great time. I wanted to use the uneven flames, and I first saw that as the sun's corona. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll just make it a sunflower and still have the sun corona in the center and use those jaggedy flames, and then use the Artisan Curves peak to kind of extend out into the petals of my sunflowers. So I made 3 different sizes, so you could have a table topper and placemats and mug rugs coasters if you like.
I love it. Yeah, so I was just kind of showing some of the pictures on the screen. So the fire design is really in the center, is that right?
Right. And I wanted to show the templates off, or the fire design. So I used a 12 weight thread, whereas the other stitching is all done in just an embroidery weight
Oh,
thread.
wonderful. Okay. Yeah, it almost looks like you did some ice work along the edges there.
And I didn't have the ice templates. I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Yeah, that would be actually work out really well, I think, to use that for the outside edges. So that's pretty neat. Who knew?
Right.
Perfect fit.
Yeah, perfect fit. Well, that's great. So I'm excited to jump over to your first video on this. So we're going to be playing 2 parts to this today. So we'll go ahead and dive in. Make sure to ask lots of questions. Shauna has pre-recorded a video for us, so we'll be able to go ahead and use that. And then we'll go ahead and tag your questions, and as we between the two videos, we can answer those questions as well.
Mhm.
Any other thing that you want to share before we jump over to that video, Shanna?
I would just was wondering what Mike was thinking of when you designed Fire.
Honestly, the first thing that popped into my head was just Fire and Ice. It's just one of those things that you always hear about it together. And when I saw that there wasn't anything, I mean, the sky was the limit. I love how you kind of took the whole flame to the sun and then you made it into the sunflower. One of the things that I still haven't seen done, I still want to see a border made with it. So maybe I'll throw that challenge out to all of our viewers today, because I think, and actually I saw in one of the comments in the promotions beforehand, someone was saying that they were waiting for something like this to finally be able to put something on her hot rod quilts. So there are so many different things that you can do with this. And I love the way that it looks when you actually mix the different sizes too. So I love what you've done with this, the taking in the sun and the corona and all of that. What a great mix. But honestly, it was just one of those things that just seemed to lend itself to each other. So again, kudos to the creativity. I love the play on the sun, the center of the sunflower with the flame. So it looks really great.
Yeah, that's really fun.
Thank you. And I did experiment using the Fire template as the outside border for one of the units. So that's on the video also. So I offer you lots of
Oh.
different options. So play with it and have fun.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
All right, well, I did want to go ahead and show everyone on the website, we have posted a couple links. I think Mike's posted a couple of links as well to his website. Mike also offers free shipping in the continental US, so you have that opportunity. But you can go ahead and pick up for free in any of our retail stores near you if you went ahead and have them shipped, to a store near you as well. And then we do have those two options. We've got the Fire and the Ice right there on the site. So I wanted to share that, but let's jump over to that video now and we'll
Shanna
dive right
Rendon,
in. All right, here we go.
and welcome to Fiery Sunflowers table set. It's a new quilting project that I've been working on, and it includes 3 sizes of sunflowers. The largest I call topper is 24 inches, the placemat is 15 inches, and the coaster or mug rug is 6 inches. And fiery because they're all quilted in part using the new Fire template set from Sew Steady, which was created by Sew for Less. And I used a favorite autumn-inspired red, gold, orange variegated thread. In addition to the Fire template set, I used some Westerly Design Artisan Curves peaks and Artisan Curves circles. There are 3 different variations of the basic design for the topper. That way you can choose the one you like. I used more densely quilted in one using smaller template shapes, or changed the density by using larger template shapes. I used 3 different sizes of the Artisan Curves peaks and 2 sizes of the Artisan Curves circles. You can also quilt this design using only 1 Artisan Curve circle and 1 Artisan Curve peak, or get the entire set and make your own designs. Within the 3 variations, I substituted a between the lines ½ circle rather than the Artisan Curve circle to show you how that could be done. In another, I used the Circles on Quilts 12 to 18 inch templates rather than an Artisan Curve circle, so that you can choose the style that you want and or maybe use the templates you already have to complete your sunflowers. So the Fire templates for the center and the peaks to emanate from the center. And I just threw in the circles to break up the design a little bit. And the construction is fast and easy. There's only 1 shape to cut, and that is made very easy using the patchwork adjustable half hexagon ruler. Or you could possibly use another 60-degree ruler. But the basic sunflower is 6 hexagon petals around a center hexagon. Don't worry, the project is straight seams only, no inset or Y seams, and there's no binding because mine are reversible. I used a fun sunflower print for the backs of my sunflowers and yellow and brown fat quarters for the flowers. Also, I'm beginning the class with the quilting portion because that seems to be why most people are here, and the construction will follow the quilting. So let's look at the fire templates. So this is the set of fire templates. The size range is from 2.5, then to 3.5, 4.25, and 5.25. And the templates are created by Mike from Sew for Less. And you can see the topper in the background with the fire template center. So this is the topper is 24 by about 25 inches. The placemat is 14.5 inches by 15.5 inches, or about 15 inches. And the little coaster or mug rug is 6.5 inches. And all three have the center design completed with the fire template set. And this fire design looks a little bit different from what you see in the handout because I've used 6 repeats and I used the back side of the template rather than the front side to make the design. So let's look a little more closely at the fire template. This is the 3.5 inch template. In the instructions that come with the template, this is a pivot point or pinhole, indicating that it can be a rotating design. You use a pin or a thumbtack and stitch it out the way you would any circles on quilts designed from Sew Steady. There's also this horizontal line across the base of the template so that you use that to make your border. And these diagonal lines here at the pivot point are just more lines to line up with any fabric reference line. So there are horizontal and lengthwise etched markings on the template, and this allows you to match up any fabric reference lines you'd like, rotating or straight, to make a border. Also, I added my own marks on the template. You see these extra marks in black. I did that, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. This is the 4.25 inch template that I used in the center of my toppers. This is what you get with 6 rotations and turning the template over. You get this nice little spiral thing in the center. I didn't use the pivot point to stitch this. I simply rotated the template around the ruler foot, like I would with a Spinifex template. I wanted to emphasize the center, so I stitched it with a 12-weight polyester thread. This has the look of cotton, but it is polyester. And the outside I quilted with this 50-weight polyester, variegated red, orange, gold, that's also very contrasty. Both threads are made by Superior, and both have a matte finish as opposed to a more glossy sheen that you would get on a polyester embroidery thread. The variegated thread is So Fine 50, and the 12-weight thread is So Sassy. And this is a polyester embroidery thread for comparison. For this stitch out, in addition to the fire template, I used these 3 artisan curve templates. Artisan curves are larger, they're a little over 10 inches long, but extremely versatile. Shown here are artisan curve circles, number 02, artisan curves peaks, number 36, and number 37. And just a note about artisan curves. They're a family of about 60 templates grouped by shape. They have circles, squares, ovals, diamonds, 10 different shapes altogether. Each template has a name and a number. Their numbers range from 1 to 93, but there are only 60-some templates. An example is circles are only numbers 1 through 7, peaks are only numbers 30 through 39, and squares finish the family out with numbers 90 to 93. All that said, I'm only working with circles and peaks in this project. This is what they look like in real life. I'm going to stitch the circles, both inner circles and outer circles, using this artisan curve, number 2 circle. It's 1/2 inch in diameter. Then I will use this peak, or the inner circle of the peaks. This is peak number 36. It's 1/2 inch wide by 3 inches tall. This is the narrowest peak template, so you can fit many more repeats of this template around the circle when compared to the next 2 peaks that I'll show you. In this example, I used the peak number 37, which is 1 inch by 3 inches wide, on the outer circle. I will also show you an option of using the fire set on this outer section as well. To mark the template, I want the highest point of the fire stitched with the template to be pointing at the outside corners. Well, the fire template has etched markings denoting the vertical and horizontal centers of the design, but when I stitched it out, that wasn't the highest point. So, take a stitching line disc and place it as far into each of the flame stitching areas within the template as possible, because this is as far as you can stitch. Then mark a horizontal and vertical line to indicate the needle placement that you'll get when you actually stitch this out. I just used a small ruler and a permanent fine point Sharpie marker. The marks are not really permanent on templates, or they'll come off with rubbing alcohol, but because it's a permanent marker, it won't smear on our templates. All that remains to do before stitching is to mark the center using a 6-point crosshair ruler with the reference lines pointing to each corner. I used a clover white marker, but test your fabric before you ever use a heat removable marker. I'm using a Bernina 790. My 12 weight thread is threaded. I'm using a 116 top stitch needle. One caveat, do not use an automatic threader when you're using a 12 weight thread. That can damage your machine. So I have a 60 weight bobbin thread. I'm using a 60 weight polyester embroidery thread for the bobbin because I want that to show up on the back side. And I have a double batting, so I need to double check my ruler foot height and also decrease the foot pressure. But after testing the tension, the stitches look good. Ready to go. This is Fire 4.25. I added a ruler sticker to mark the top Sharpie marker that I just placed, and I'm going to stitch this out as I would a Spinifex template. That is rotating the template around the ruler foot. So pull up the bobbin thread, and I'm going to use those black marks and my ruler sticker as my placement lines. Using the etched lines on the template would be here, but I'm going to use my black line and line up the top. I can also use this seam allowance for alignment, but the etched line at the base is what I'm going to use to line up there. There are inside and outside curves as well as points in the template, so just start slowly. You can stitch either direction. I found it's really important to hold the template and the fabric securely, but don't press down too hard or it becomes difficult to move. Now, as you're going around the corner, just go slowly, keeping the template just lightly touching the ruler foot. I did a couple of stitches together at the top and then come back around this nice gentle curve, and now just gently around the curve, keeping the template and ruler foot together. And now just stitch around to the base and you have one fire complete. I'm lining up the base of the template with the etched marks because I want to make sure to keep a smaller amount of thread here at the center, especially since I'm using a 12-weight thread. So we'll line the template at the base and at the top, and let's stitch the other direction just because you can do it that way. Again, careful around the curves. You can see that my template is upside down when you look at the logo. Now do a couple of stitches at the top. And then come back to the place I started. Get rid of these threads first. Back to the center and stitch over those threads that I just cut. So there you have 2 repeats. I'm going to do 6 repeats total. My center measures about 8 inches from side to side, and from point to point it's about 8 3/4 inches. So this 4 1/4 fire fits perfectly point to point. The fire templates have multiple curves and points so that even the simplest stitch outs look elaborate. I found it's really important to hold the template to the fabric securely, but don't press down too hard or it becomes difficult to move. And then your shoulder and neck get too tired. So I try to think of the fabric and template as one unit held together by my hands, and that unit is going to move freely over the ruler work glider. So with just light pressure holding the fabric and template, I can drive my project around the ruler work glider more easily. It's fun to watch this intricate design lay itself out as you stitch. I'll be interested to see some of the designs you all come up with. It seems like there are almost limitless variations possible with these templates. I didn't need to mark all of the 6 reference lines on my fabric. As it turns out, all I needed was to have the center marked and use the points on the patchwork as my reference lines. How easy is that? One more repeat to finish off the center. This 12 weight thread is interesting. It shows up nicely while I'm stitching, and I certainly want to make sure that my stitches are all mostly the same length, because it looks like it's really gonna stand out. But when I look at the finished project, it doesn't seem to stand out that much. That might be because I used variegated red, orange, gold on the yellow fabric. So it has a lot more stitching and it's very contrasting. Okay, we're finished with the center. Now just pull up the bobbin thread and cut all the threads off so that I can bury the threads. Pull the bobbin thread up to the top of the project and go ahead and cut that off, as well as the 12 weight top thread. Now I'll just bury the 2 threads into the batting. I like these clover top threading needles in assorted sizes. And then tie a knot about 1/4 of an inch away from the fabric. Sometimes it helps to use the needle to slide the loop down to make the knot. And you can't see it well, but I have tied the bobbin thread and the 12 weight thread together in the knot. Now I'm going to take both threads, the 12 weight and the bobbin thread, and thread the needle by popping them into the top of that needle. So I've got both threads there. Now I'm going to take the needle and bury it into the batting. So I want to put the tip of the needle down in close to the center as I can get, and then make sure the needle's going through the batting. So make sure the needle doesn't show up on the back, and then pull both threads through. And I have to tug a little more to get the knot of the 12 weight through, but it works just fine. And the top threading needles handle the 12 weight thread just fine. So clip them off at the surface, and there's our center. For this next step, I call the inner circles. I'm going to use an artisan curve template. It is artisan curve circle number 02, or 1/2 inch circles. The template is about 10 inches long and has a number of pinholes down the length of the template with numbers alongside them. There's a number on every other pinhole, and the numbers indicate the size of the stitched out design. The unnumbered pinholes are at 1/2 inch intervals. I have already placed the thumbtack in the center. Note that I had to place the tack through the center of my stitching too. So consider whether you would like to quilt the center as the last part of the project. Quilt the last part first. I have done it both ways, and either way works. And I have used a little silicone plug to protect me from my thumbtack. I'm going to use the variegated 40 weight polyester So Fine thread from Superior. It looks like cotton, but it's polyester, and I still have the polyester embroidery thread in the bobbin. The thumbtack is in place. Place the template at the 9 inch mark. The circle of circles will be 9 inches in diameter, or I will be stitching 4.5 inches from the thumbtack. I am planning to overlap my stitching onto the points of my center, but not touch the previous design. Oops, Let's make that 9.5 inches. Yeah, that's much better. It won't touch my fire design, but yes, this 9.5 is where it should be. I only have 2 pieces of stable tape on this template. I find that just putting a couple of pieces right here, it's about all I need, because I'll be holding down this end with one hand and maneuvering with the other hand. Let's get started. You'll note I can see the stitching from my fire template up inside the circle, but I have a 1/4 inch. I have a 1/4 inch that's not going to be stitched. So this circle should just touch the top end of the stitching from fire. Okay. Just stitched over my beginning stitches a couple stitches, and I'll rotate the template. And from now on, I'll be doing 1.5 rotations of the circle. When learning to stitch connecting circles, I would overstitch the top of one circle and then the bottom of the next circle, alternating the overstitching so it might look less obvious. And now I don't even have to think about it. It just happens. The circle of circle touches a point of the center and then arcs away. Only to come back to the next point. I like it. Clip the threads. My left hand is covering one entire end of the template. I'm holding that to the fabric, and I'm only using the fingers of both hands to rotate the template. So this is the reason I only need 2 pieces of stable tape on this template. So you just place the stable tape where you're going to need it. These circles are small, but there's another artisan curve template that makes even smaller circles. So artisan curve 01 makes circles a 1/4 inch in diameter. Because these circles are small, my hand movements are small, and this is an especially good time to remind myself not to hold onto the fabric and template like they're going to run away from me. So I try to use the lightest possible pressure to hold and to move the quilting project. I found I get to quilt a lot longer when I remember to follow my own advice. I also like to stitch fast, and this section is a little faster than real time, but not much. Now I need to slow down because the place I need my circles to connect is coming up, and I want that connection to be as unnoticeable as possible. So one of the things that I do is check here to see how much space I have. And this little circle is going to overlap my joining circle a small amount, but it does fit nicely in there. Sometimes that's not the case. So I'm just going to bring up bobbin threads and clip them. And this is our first row of circles, or inner circles. What do you think? In the next section, or in the next row, we will be using a new template. It is Artisan Curves, number 36. It's 1/2 inch wide and 3 inches long. This is really fun to stitch out. And I'm placing it on the tack at number 16, so we'll be making a 16-inch diameter circle, because I only want to leave about a 1/4 inch space between the circles and the peaks. Stitching with the peaks is very easy. I don't need to double stitch anything. Just stitch one peak, rotate the template to the next, and stitch the next peak. Pull up the bobbin thread, stitch a few stitches close together, and stitch from the bottom of the peak to the top. And whenever I stitch a shape that changes direction, I always try to put 2 stitches before I change direction. I think it looks better. Rotate the template and stitch the next peak. I could stitch all 3 sides of this template, and that would connect all of the points, and it would form another continuous circle. So the peaks would look like they're projecting from that circle. And if that's the spot I double stitched, it might even emphasize the circle that much more. As I'm using this template, you can see that my finger position relative to the stable tape is not as good as it could be, which says I maybe should move my stable tape. But I'm not having any problem with the template slipping, and I have to have my fingers at the end of the template. As you can see, that needle bar gets really close to my fingers. The variegated thread is showing up much better with the peaks than it did for the circles. Circles all just appear to be the dark color, but I can see the different variegated colors. It's cool. I have severely edited this part of the video. The stitching becomes rather monotonous, so I took chunks out and it's moving at fast speed. Till now. This is where it becomes more interesting. My stitching line is coming back to the point I started. So are my points going to fit together nicely? How am I going to get them to look okay? I don't know if it's just me, but I slow down as if slowing down is going to make any difference to how they're going to fit together. And I'm not a very good judge of, is my peak going to match the next peak? So I go even slower on the last one. And then it's going to be close, but will it match my stitching line? So let's take a look. Oh, it's difficult to see because of the variegated thread, but there's the yellow color right down toward the base, and just staying on the template, I'm able to go back to the same stitching place that I started, and my peaks look just fine. So a few stitches, few back stitches, and then I'm going to just cut the threads. So I'm just pulling up the bobbin threads from below and cutting everybody off. And this is our 16-inch circle. Fire, circles, and peaks. All we have left is to put a little bit of a design up here in the outer edges, and I'll offer you two options, one fire and one peaks.
I love it so much. Thank you for sharing that amazing video with us, Shanna. We do have one more part. I was going to see if we had any questions that we wanted to answer out loud during this. It looks like people loved that heavier thread that you used. That really did make it pop. That was very, very pretty. Did you see anything that you wanted to address to everyone at this moment, Shanna?
There were some questions about links to the Artisan Curves, so I posted the links on the YouTube site,
Okay.
and it sounds like people are really liking the fire templates.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will post a little reminder if you decide to purchase the fire. We've got that launch deal. You can get that on the Sew for Less site. You can get it on the Sew Study site. If you choose to pick it up in a store near you, then you can get free shipping on that for the Sew Study side. And then we do have, it looks like part 3 is the part that I have available here, Shauna. So we're going to give everybody the opportunity to purchase this class for life if it's one that you decide that you want to have, because this is such a fun project. But I do have, I'm going to go ahead and share with them part 3 if that's okay, because that's where they have the variations. Is that going to work okay, Shauna?
Okay, excuse me. The part 2 will show how to do the artisan curves around the peaks that were just stitched. And then part 2 also shows how the fire template can be used as the very outside border of the
Oh.
sunflower. And part 3 is then showing the variations that I used, so that if you don't have the artisan curves peaks, you could possibly use, say, a between the lines circle, or some other templates that are in that variation part.
Oh, I love it. Okay, great. Well, why don't we start on part 3 at this moment, and then I will see if I can track down part 2 on our side, and we can show some of that border work that you've got going on that. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, so let's go ahead and head over to the variations at this time. And all right.
This is part 3, sunflower variations and alternate templates. These are the 24-inch toppers with all their variations and alternate techniques. All the templates and techniques for this topper were shown in previous videos. I used 3 different templates to stitch this: 2 artisan curves peaks and 1 artisan curves circle, and is the most densely quilted of all the toppers. This variation of topper uses a slightly larger artisan curves peak for the inner peaks, and that same size on the outer peaks. The circles in the center, or the inner circles, are in a hexagon shape rather than the circular shape as in the previous example. And those were created by this little template, the Between the Lines template. And I'll give you instructions for that variation coming up. And this is my third variation. The circles and the peaks are larger than in the two previous, and there are 2 concentric circles done with the templates that you see. These are the circles on quilts and can be substituted. Instructions for those are following as well. Again, these are the 3 toppers, and the numbers that you see beneath each one is my estimated stitch count on each variation. And these estimates are based on my stitches per inch average of about 10 stitches per inch. But there's no doubt using larger shapes to quilt requires fewer stitches. This sunflower has medium-sized peaks and half-inch circles. The variation is the inner circles are in straight lines connected to form a hexagon, imitating the shape of the center. And it's quilted with the medium-sized peak number 37, which is 1 inch by 3 inches. The first example, the artisan curve peak, was 1/2 inch by 3 inches. And the circles in both examples are the same size. That's 1/2 inch. The difference is I'll be using the Between the Lines template. It's a 1/2 inch circle template, the same size as the artisan curve circle. And this is just in case you have the Between the Lines. You can go ahead and use it with this design. The template itself is a 4-inch square marked with 1/4 inch reference lines. The center is marked both horizontally and vertically. I added the pink ruler stickers to make the center easier for all of us to see. And if you look at the half circle etched mark on the template next to the point of one of my arrows, you can use that line to help you stitch circles in a row. That is, stitch a circle, move the template to the right to stitch another circle, and that etched half circle lines up on the previously stitched circle. That's really cool. And you can get the Between the Line templates individually or a set of 5. The sizes range from 1/4 inch diameter to 2 inches. I marked my sunflower 3/8 of an inch away from the dark center on all 6 sides. I want my circles to not exactly touch the dark center. I'm going to put my 1/2 inch circle on the lines that I drew. I have marked the center of the 1/2 inch circle with ruler stickers to help keep me on track. Then I'm going to just have straight rows of circles. And you can see which you might like better. I want my circle to be right there. If I look at the template, I can see that my needle is going to be a 1/2 inch away from the template all the way around. And this is not quite. My stitching is going to be a 1/4 inch in all the way around. And this is not quite a 1/4 inch. So my circle is going to be placed just where I want it, barely above the dark center line. Of my 1/2 inch circle, it's marked center here, and I have center here. And I'm going to begin with a circle on the point. I'll be going around the circle 1.5 times to get a straight row of circles. Then I just move my circle down the straight line. So align the template center with the marked lines on the fabric. Stitch 1.5 times around the circle and slide the template into the next position. I stitch and move to the right side, but do whatever is convenient for you. If I stop sewing with the needle at the ruler sticker, that's the furthest point on the side of my circle, so that when I slide the template to the next position and stitch, there won't be any overlap in the circle. The circles will just be touching. However, if I stop stitching above that midline or below the midline, my circles will overlap. And it just depends, what look are you going for? Would you like overlapped circles or not? Up to you. I showed you all the etched lines that are available with this template, but I'm only using the ruler stickers to line up as I'm stitching across the row. Wanted to show you just how easy it can be. And you can see that I'm alternating my stitching directions. So one time I'll go one direction, the next time the opposite direction. Most of the time now I don't even realize that I'm doing that. It's just after stitching a lot of circles, it just happens. It's very convenient, because if you stitch the same direction each time you go around the circle, and you're double stitching the same part of the circle each time, it can appear that half of your circle is overstitched. Whereas if you alternate, the thought is the overstitching won't show up as much. Or just use variegated thread. This should give you an idea as to how to use a between the lines template to do straight rows. Keep in mind, if I had marked a circle around my center hexagon, I could also stitch a circle with between the line templates. The variation in this sample uses 2 concentric circles in place of the half-inch outer circles. And in this version of the sunflower, I used 2 larger artisan curves. Artisan curves circle, 1 inch, and artisan curves peaks at 1.5 inches by 3 inches. And I'm going to show you now how to do the 2 concentric circles with the Circles on Quilts templates. I'm going to add 2 concentric circles. I'm going to add 1 circle that's basically at this outer edge part. This is the furthest away that I can make it without dropping off the project. So I have Circle on Quilts template. This is the 13.5 to 17.5 inch size. And I'm stitching at 17.5 inches. Place the smaller end of the template on the center pin and pull up the bobbin thread. When you put the presser foot down, put down toward the opening on the template. The channel here is fairly narrow, and you want to make sure that you don't put your presser foot down on top of the template. I'm going to stitch toward myself and toward the open end of the template. Because you have options here. You can stitch toward yourself or away from yourself, and you can use either side of the template. So do you like to stitch toward the open end of the template or toward the closed end of the template? I try to vary the method, so whenever it might happen, just because of the project or the design, there may be only one way that you can make the stitches work. So I suggest practice both methods. These circles are easy to stitch. You have nice long portions to stitch between template rotations. And that's a nice time to look at your quilting. Are the stitches the length that you want them to be? Are you sewing at a comfortable speed? Is your quilting position comfortable and relaxed? If not, this is a great time to work on any of those items. Listen to the sound of your machine and adjust your speed to get the stitch length you want. Can you beat?
Oh, I love this. All right, so I have found version or part 2 of our video today, so I'm going to go ahead and head over to that. I am going to go ahead and fast forward it. We're going to have this video and this whole class available for you to purchase on our So Steady University. So we're giving you a little bit more than a preview today, which is great news. But let me go ahead and head over. Shanna, I'd like to go ahead and forward up to the part where we're using the fire template to do some of the border work, if that's okay by you. So let me go ahead. Do you have any idea where that's at in the video?
Probably toward the end.
I have just enough room.
Excellent. So then I will go ahead and kind of forward it to that point.
Oh, there
so
it
we
is.
Can...
Sorry. Just back it up a little. I do the fire before I do the outside peaks.
Oh,
There,
I see
there.
it. Okay, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and watch that for a little bit. And then we have one more amazing class to share with everyone today, and that is going to be the Fiery Day by Diane Russel. So let's go ahead and watch her use the fire in a new way on the border.
Circles, and the line that I just marked on my template, I'm going to match the line I marked, which is the point of the flame, to the center that I drew on here with my crosshair. And then just stitch around. And we come back to the center. We'll clip those. Now all I have to do is remove this template by raising my presser foot and sliding the needle through the needle channel. You'll want to make sure before you do that that you can, so that you can raise the presser foot safely with your machine. Some machines don't have enough room between the presser foot and the needle bar, and you might do some damage. So if you're using a manufacturer's foot, then it's most likely going to be okay, but check before you do anything like that. Now I'm going to just slide on the larger template, and I'm going to line the line that I drew up with the line that I put on my template. And I'm not going to stitch this line, so I'll stitch here, yeah, down to about right here, but I'm not going to stitch within that 1/4 inch. I wanted to make basically a half circle of fire here on this outer petal. So I marked a line in the center, then another line at each of the outer point corners. You can see little diagonal lines there, and another line on each side 1.5 inch above the last row of circles. Then I did not want the stitching to touch the row of circles. I wanted to keep the stitches about 1/4 inch away from the circles, as I did for all the patterns, from first row of circles to the peaks, 1/4 inch in between, then 1/4 inch between the peaks and the outer row of circles. So I just wanted to keep that spacing. And that meant that 2 of the fire repeats were only partially stitched. And that's the 2 closest to the circles right here. And I wanted the start point for all the fire repeats to remain at the center of the design. So I used an embroidery style jump stitch. Make a few small stitches to lock it in, jump over to the point I want to start again, and begin with a couple of small stitches, and then I can just trim the threads in between. So now I can just stitch out the final 2 fire repeats, and I have then my half circle of fire. To review the sizes of templates that I used here, I'm stitching now with the 3.5 inch. The 3.5 inch template was used for 2 repeats on each side of the one in the center. The one in the center is 2.5 inches, the smallest template in the set, because the 3.5 inch would not, I couldn't stitch that upright. It was too tall. So this is the final fire, and I'm going to stop when my ruler foot gets close to the circles. When my ruler foot is just touching the circle, then that means I'm a 1/4 inch away. So now just bring up the bobbin threads, and I'll trim all the threads off here and go back and trim off the jump stitches that I made. It's nice to have these small thread snips. They're sharp, curved edge, and they get right down there to trim off the jump stitches at the fabric line. And this is 5 fire repeats. Keep in mind this is variegated thread, and it will look better once the markings are taken off the fabric. So there you go. Next we'll look at putting peaks in the outer edge. Next, I'm going to use the Artisan Curves number 37. This peak is 1 inch wide by 3 inches long, and I'm going to use it to create the peaks along the outer edges of my project. I can't use a pinhole or pivot point for this because the template is not long enough. And a while ago, I saw a technique used by another Sew Steady educator, Nan Pan of Non-Pay Designs. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Nan. Her classes are in Swedish with subtitles, but you can tell what she's doing, and I thought this was a novel approach to the template not long enough issue. That said, I've not tried this before, so here we go. Nan used this little marking tool, the Circle Works Outer Rim Marker 18, and she used it to extend the length of the Artisan Curve template. As it is, this is a handy little marking tool that's used to mark straight lines or curved lines. Simply place it on the center thumbtack and mark different lengths on your fabric reference lines, and so that it will help you create or place a design. So what I'm going to do is get some tape and attach the outer rim to my artisan curve template. I could have a really long template this way. I want to have some of the outer rim extending beyond the thumbtack while making sure that the outer rim doesn't interfere with the peak stitching area. And then do I connect them with the peak on top or below the outer rim? So I'm going to grab some tape. I'm going to use this vinyl tape. It is about 1 inch wide and maybe 2.5 inches long. It's the same tape I use to tape my gates in place, my keys or gates on my templates. I find it holds very well and doesn't leave sticky residue. So I'm using 2 pieces of tape and just wrapping it around both templates. It seems fairly secure. And I put the outer rim on the top of my artisan curve. Now I have a really long template. And notice that I used the rows of pinholes on both templates to line them up. The overlap is a little more than 2 inches. I just figured out if you decide you want the outer rim tool on the underside of your artisan curve rather than the top, just flip the artisan curve over and put staple tape on the other side. Okay, this is what I want to do. Small peaks on either side and full-size peaks in the center. The points of the peaks should end about 1/4 inch away from the outside edge and leave 1/4 inch between the circles and the beginning of the peaks.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we got to get in so much of this amazing class today. We are going to go ahead and allow y'all to purchase this class on our So Steady University. Here, it should be loaded here in just the next day or two to be able to purchase on the university. We'll post some links to it, to the live feed as well as the recorded feed that we're going to be sharing over the weekend. So you can buy this class. Again, that's for our fiery sunflower designs that were created by the amazing Shanna Rendon. Now, just so you can see, Shanna has also created a fiery sunflowers handout. She gives you all of the details on how to put together this project. And that's going to be part of the class, as well as some supply lists and other tools. So there's some great handouts to go along with her amazing instruction. I agree with all of you. I think that Shauna is really, really clear instructor and very calming. So I really appreciate you sharing your expertise with everyone and that really fun sunflower project. That's going to be a great table topper option. And I do agree having the fire in the middle really plays on that sun as well. So, Shauna, great job today. Thank you again for sharing. And any final words that you want to share with everyone before we head off here?
Not really, other than take the project, make it your own, and have a great time.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
And thank you, Mike.
Yeah, he did a great job developing those, didn't he?
Yes. And thank you, Shanna.
Well, I got to tell you though, that was really amazing stuff though. I mean, even though we did come up with the template, it's you guys that really make it shine. Your creativity is second to none. It's funny you were talking about her voice being calming. My Leslie just texted me a little bit ago. We've got a 5.5-month-old puppy, and Louis also thinks that your voice is very calming. So
Oh.
to find out, it does. It communicates over humans and puppies as well. But
I
great
love it.
job. I mean, the comments are, I don't know if you got a chance to see them all. I did see you in the comments, so, but just overwhelmingly positive. What a great project. So, and a great use of the new templates. Thank you so much, Shanna.
Thank you.
I agree. All right, so we are on to our last but not least project of the day for our fiery designs. And Diane, you have created a stunner. I absolutely love your play on the fire designs that you've shared with everyone. So while I work on getting that pulled up on the screen for everyone, tell us a little bit about your
Hi.
project.
Hello. I first of all, let me say thank you so much for creating these because I absolutely love them. And there is just, I have only touched the tip of the iceberg on what my project is, but I wanted to do a mandala. I wanted to do something a little bit different than what I normally do. So I have created a mandala with only using 2 of the fire templates. And I was telling Mike earlier, we were texting, and I was telling him earlier that this weekend I am going to be making Christmas gifts, and I'm going to be using a cross between fire and ice templates and my butterflies and botanicals. So I promised to post things on the Sew for Less Facebook group. And also, let me just say, I absolutely loved your class, Shauna. It was amazing, and I will be purchasing that because it's a very cool class.
Thank you.
So fun, I agree. Well, I do have your inspiration for your project pulled up on the screen. I always love your choice of fabric, Diane. I think that this, from a standpoint of template, just really, really pops and truly, I think, embodies the fire. I don't know about you, but Mike, but I think that this one, like you stare into it and you think you're looking at a fire, maybe at a campfire or something like that.
To be honest, I can't agree more. I mean, this is
Yeah.
basically what I envisioned, and I agree to reiterate what you said. I mean, fabric choice is key, and I challenge
Hmm.
you to find anyone to do it better than Diane. She does an
Yeah.
amazing job, always picking up not only just the fabrics that the reveal, but the top fabrics. I mean, the way that they contrast together. This is an
Yeah.
incredible project. I am so excited to see this one. When I first saw the sneak peeks, I mean, it was a little bit ago. I think that she posted it on our Facebook group, like she mentioned.
Mhm.
I was just beside myself. And I have been looking forward to this day since I saw that. So if it sounds like I'm excited, it's because I am. I can't wait to see this.
I agree.
It's
Well,
very fun.
yeah. So Diane, tell us a little bit about just kind of your inspiration on creating the mandala.
The mandala is something that as a child I used to paint and color. And so when I saw Mike's templates, that is what immediately drew me to doing a mandala. And people who know me know that I have always worked in clear, bright colors, whether it be fabric or when I'm painting, when I furnish a house, it's always been clear, bright colors. So that's what inspired me when I found this fabric in a little shop in Geneva, New York, which is the town that my son went to college in. I found this fabric and I ended up going back a couple of times and buying a yard here and a yard there. And finally, I just called Vale, the owner of Quilty Pleasures, and said, I'll take a whole bolt. So I have it in this colorway, and I actually brought out some pieces so that you can see the way to get template to really work in its vibrancy is to get fabrics that have a lot of movement to them. And as you can see in a lot of the quilts that I've done over the years for Sew Steady, I try and get a lot of movement in quilts. So I'm going to turn the camera around because I have all sorts of things to show you. Let me just make sure I can do this without messing it up.
Yeah, and I was
Um,
going to recommend try to turn it horizontal if you can,
yes.
because that's going to help us in Yep, there it is.
Yep,
Full
that
view.
was
Look
just
at
so
you.
you could see me without makeup today, Stacy.
Oh.
That was all that was for.
Well, I think your
And,
filter is still on because you're gorgeous, Diane.
oh yeah. Hang on and let me just get my little fingers. I've got to turn it back first. And then I'll show you a couple of different things that I'm talking about. We just got to get it to the back camera. Okay, how's that?
That looks gorgeous.
Okay, hang on because they keep asking me to get the app and I'm not getting the app right now. So we'll just be done with that. Okay,
Mm.
so.
Oh, try turning it one more time. It just flipped sideways.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. There we go.
Is that,
Oh,
no, is it sideways still for you?
it is not
Hang on.
sideways, but here we go. That's what we wanted.
How's
Let's
that?
hope it can stay at that view. Yeah.
Oh God,
Little,
let's hope
can you
so.
go a little bit higher for us?
Absolutely.
There it is.
How's that?
Well, we see the gorgeous fabric, but we don't see a foot.
You don't see a foot.
Yeah, the ruler foot, the machine isn't in the pick at all. I don't know what your
Oh.
goal is right now, but
My goal is to do something with technology that I keep trying to talk my nephew into coming over and just filming my classes because
yeah.
it's such a strain for me. All right, how is that for seeing the fabric?
The fabric looks gorgeous right
All
now.
right.
We're at up close and personal right now on the
Very
fabric.
up close and personal. Here, we're gonna back up some. There we go. right.
Okay, that
How's
looks
that?
great. That is
Yay.
perfect. You nailed
Only
it.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
This is the fabric that I used for what I call it the peekaboo layer and we call it the peeker layer. So this is the fabric I used, but you can also use, I pulled out another one that is in the same family, the same fabric line, but it's got a lot of different colors. So you can really see how it moves. And that's what I like to accomplish when I am doing the template method. And again, those of you who know me know that I am totally hooked on the template method. I absolutely love it. So we're going to use 2 different templates. For this, we're going to use the largest and the smallest. And we're using the 11.5 inch for the large, and then the smallest is the 2.5 inch. And I also want to show you, though, some of the variations that you can do. Now, I chose to do the traditional spinning the template method, like our spin effects. For this particular one, I used the medium size, which is the 5.5 inch. So I used the 5.5 inch, but I used a 16 rotation. And this template set really speaks to me because I love the way it looks. I love the secondary designs. I've used the pin method, which I will show you how to use, but I use the pin method so I can have a little center. You can also use it without the pin method and you'll get more of a continuous design. So I did it on that. And then I wanted to try something because I've had people, when I've done classes before, I have had people ask me what batting I use. And I have always used a cotton batting. So I thought, what if I tried a polyester batting? And I did try a sample with the polyester batting. And to be honest with you, I love the loft that it gives all your little pieces, all your little parts. But the one thing I would do differently if I use the polyester batting again would be I would use a very light spray starch. And not a spray starch, I'm sorry, a spray based. and you would use it very sparingly because you don't want it to you don't need a lot. And you would always spray your batting. You never ever spray your fabric. So I would do, if I use the polyester again, then I will be using a spray based for that. But I went back to my tried and true. I went back to using my cotton batting because that's what I really love. So we are going to begin, and we're going to take this in all different stages. The first thing is, when you're doing the template method, you're going to have 4 layers. So you're going to have your backing fabric, you're going to have your batting, you're going to have your peekaboo or peeker fabric, and you're going to have your top fabric. Your top fabric is going to be backed with Template Fuse, which is a 2-sided fusible web. And what you must do first is I press all of my pieces first without Template Fuse. Then I take my top fabric and I will press that 3 times using Best Press. So I'll put a fine mist of Best Press on, press it, and repeat that 3 times. That's going to give a really nice glide to your fabric, and it's going to be easier to do the ruler work. It's also going to hold up. One of my favorite marking tools is the Frixon pens that are.
Come on. Come here.
What? Come on. Who? Dog? I want a dog. This is
I was actually calling you. No.
Oh, only if you made me dinner, Stace. So this is the Frixion. It is a felt tipped marker, and it's erasable. It's heat erasable. The reason this is my fabric or my favorite is because when I put this on my top layer, because I've done 3 coats of my Best Press, this is not going to permeate the fibers. If I used my my ballpoint heat erasables, I'd be afraid that it might permeate the fabric. But because I'm using the felt tipped heat erasable markers, it won't do any damage to it. So you're going to put this all together. Make sure that everything is pressed. I like to press my backing, my batting, and my peekaboo fabric. I like to press those together. And when you're using a cotton or a cotton poly blend, it will stick together so that you don't have to use any basting spray. Unless you were going to make something rather large, then you might want to use basting spray. So put those 3 layers together, take your top layer, put your fusible web on, and just lay that on top. I usually have a pin or 2 at the top of mine. And then you're going to take this and you are going to mark with your crosshair ruler. You are going to mark 16 rotations. And the reason you're doing 16 is because our primary design has 8 rotations, but then I put in secondary designs up towards the top. So that is why I do a 16 rotation. And with the 16 rotation, this is when I start throwing things on the floor in my studio. With the 16 rotations, I will take 2 different colored chalk pencils and I will mark the odd numbers in one color and the even numbers in a different color. So I have my even numbers are in, or excuse me, my odd numbers are in yellow, my even numbers are in white. This is just another visual thing for me that when I'm working on my odds, I know what color I'm looking for. When I'm working on my evens, I know what color I'm working. So it's just easier for me. Everyone finds their own comfort level. So I have done 16 rotations with my crosshair, and I've marked all of the rotations. I've extended my lines out, and all you really have to use for that is a straight edge. So you can use your straight edge 12-inch arc. You could use, I also used the 11.5-inch template, the fire template, and I use that as my straight edge for this. You can use anything. So we have that all marked. We're also going to use the pin placement, which I know Shanna had done the pin placement, and what it does, and I'm reaching for something under my table that I dropped. What the pin placement does is it puts the center so that you have a little of space around it. So it makes a nice little circular that you could put anything in the middle of. You could put a button, you could do a monogram, you could do pretty much anything. But I love the pin placements because it does also aid in turning the ruler. So in order to do the pin placement, say that 3 times fast, all you have to do is take one of the pins that come with all of your templates. All of your templates are going to come with your staple tape and with 2 pins. So what I do is I take the pins as I get them and I just stick them in an eraser, and that way I have them on my sewing table or in my sewing table drawer, so I always have them. So what you do is you take your pin and you place it through the front center marking and pop it through to the back. That's going to create a little bit of a divot in the back. Then all you have to do is flip this over and place your pin back into that center hole. And then I attach it with a little bit of tape. I like to sew. I like to sew with my glider as the grid glider, or my favorite is the Claire Advantage glider, so that I can cut out the space so that my feed dogs can go up or down, because I work on a lot of different projects. And so I like to have that ability. So when I do that, if I just put a little piece of tape on the back of the pin, that will hold it in place a little easier. So once you have your pin in place, right in the center, we can start sewing. So let me move the camera back down and get it so it's adjusted. I've turned the light off of my machine so that everybody can see a little easier. Before we do that, let me just go over really quickly. We're only using 4 templates today. We are going to use the 11.5-inch and the 2.5-inch fire template. And as you can see, I have marked, the templates come with a grid line on the back. I have marked on the front of the template, I have marked a line so that I know that that is the line that I am going to line up my crosshair ruler to. That is how we get such precision when we're doing ruler work, is we just can line everything up and it comes out perfectly. So I use now, So Steady has a phenomenal set of quilters creative marking tools that can be used on the front of the acrylic. You can also use a dry erase marker, but I'll be honest with you, I like the So Steady ones better. They tend to stay better, and they also tend to be a little bit brighter so that it's easier to see. So I just marked the straight grid lines at the bottom and at the top so that we'll be able to line that up. So we're going to use the 11.5-inch. We're going to use the 2.5-inch. We are always using our 12-inch arc. This is the most versatile ruler that So Steady came out with. It is just phenomenal. So I use this in tons of my projects. So we're going to use that. And then the only other one that we're going to use, I wanted to create circles around my mandala. So I am using the Circles on Quilts. And this is the circle set. It's a set of 5. We're only going to use one of the rulers, and that is the biggest one. This is this particular ruler, and let me keep adjusting my camera. This one has markings at 16.5 inch, 14.5 inch, and 12.5 inch. So that when you line it up, you are going to have a design that is going to be 16.5 inches. So this is what I used. It comes in a set of 5, which I think is a fantastic set. It's something that you will use over and over and over again as you combine different rulers and designs. This is a great thing to put on your Christmas wish list. Tell Santa you'd really like this for Christmas. It's worth its weight in gold. So we're also going to use that ruler. Those are the only 4 rulers that we are using to create this design. So let's start sewing now that we've gone over the rulers. And as you know, I'm sewing on my Bernina 770 QE, and I used to sell Berninas. And one of the things that my mentor and my boss, Linda Fellows, taught me was you never have a dirty machine. You always start a new project, or even if you're doing a long project, make sure that you clean the lint out of your machine and you oil your machine on a regular basis. This is going to keep it running at optimum. It's kind of like when you have to fill your car with either fuel or you have to have an oil change every couple of months. This is what's going to keep your machines running at the best possible. I don't even know what the word is for it, but my machine is always clean. I started out with doing a fresh needle this morning. I also I cleaned up my glider mat, which is hard to see because I have the Clear Advantage glider mat and I love it. And so everything is oiled, cleaned, and I cleaned off the top of and the bottom of my glider mat. So we're ready to sew. I have a 30 weight thread in my top and in my bobbin. You can also put a lighter weight thread in your bobbin and you'll get more bobbin usage. I tend to have, because I have the Bernina that I'm sewing on today, that has extra large bobbins. So I really don't feel the need to do that. But on a couple of my other machines that I sew on, I use a lighter weight. You can use anywhere from 100 weight to an 80 to a 60. And that you just have to make sure that you're going to adjust the tension between your top thread and your bobbin thread. So that's all you have to do with that. We are going to put our pin, and we're putting it right on our little pin, which is redundant. Now, this is when you find out how you like to sew. And I do recommend before you start any project that you get a feel for the template. You get a feel for the template, you get a feel for all of your materials that you're using. I like to sew either in an up and down motion, but I like to sew towards me, or I like to sew sideways. So I'm going to be doing both of those today so that you can see. And I put in half of the mandalas already on this just to save a little time. So I'm going to start. Now, there are written instructions for this class, and On the written instructions, it will tell you that for your 8 rotations, you can either do them at the odd crosshairs or at the even crosshairs. So for this, what I decided to do was at the odd crosshairs. So I am going to find an odd crosshair, happens to be 15, and I'm going to line this up. And Stacy, you'll let me know if everybody can see it all right. But I'm going to line this up so that my red line that you see that I marked, that is going to be lined up on my crosshair line. That is how you keep everything in sync. So that red line is lined up to my crosshair line.
Yeah, I think this looks great, Diane. Looks
Okay,
great.
good. Let me
Mhm.
know if it doesn't, because you know how I tend to bump into things.
You know, someone just asked, you don't use best press on your peaked fabric or backing, right?
I will do one coat just because I like to get it nice and pressed out. I use a very heavy iron, and believe it or not, I use a Black and Decker, like the one that my mother and my aunt had 40 years ago. And it's a really heavy iron. And so I'll do one coat of best press on all my fabrics when I press them. But then it's the top fabric that's the most important to do 3 coats on. And that's just going to help everything glide. So between gliding through with your glider mat underneath and the best press on the top layer, it's really going to be an effortless way to do ruler work. So this is lined up. Now I'm starting at the back, which I know is hard to see, but when I put the light on my machine, it's very glaring. So we decided quite a few times ago that it would be better not to have the light on my machine. So I am pulling up my bobbin thread. Always and forever, pull up your bobbin thread. Do not leave it, because you may end up with a bird's nest. And if you have ever had a bird's nest, you know that it is not fun. So I'm holding both of my threads, and I put stable tape along the outside perimeter of the design and down the center part. I have my machine at a medium speed. So no matter how hard I press on my foot pedal, it's only going to go at a medium speed. And when you're doing template work, you want your stitches to be a little bit smaller than normal. So I tend to run my hands a little slower than I would if I'm just doing, for instance, I'm doing this so that you can actually see my stitches. And if I was working on the actual template piece, which I'll be doing shortly, I tend to go a little bit slower with my hands so my stitches are slower, because you're cutting into around the stitches. So this, we're just going to go around, and this is something that you really want to practice first, because you can see right here, you're only going halfway up this template, because that's how the template is formed. And then you're coming back down around this open piece, and that's why it's a good idea to have a piece of stable tape there. And then you're coming all the way up, and I will readjust my camera, and we're coming back. And hopefully I won't lose you, but I think I did.
No, we're good. I hear ya.
So bear with me a second. I forgot to turn off. Okay, I should be back.
Okay.
And I'm going to come all the way back down to the bottom of where I started. I should have cut my threads off. Shanna showed you how to bury your threads. So you already know how to go and do that. I'll just cut these off. And then I am just going to move over a couple of stitches so that I can pivot my template, and I'm going to pivot it over to my next even, or my next odd crosshair number. So as you saw, I skipped over one whole crosshair and I just moved it over. Now I'm going to turn it this way so you can see both angles and both ways to do this. So this is if you like to sew sideways, and this works too. Depends on what I'm doing and what mood I'm in as to whether I'm going to sew sideways or not. So I've got my little lined up to my crosshair, put that right over, and I'm just holding this. Don't hold it so tight that you've got a death grip on it. Just hold it so that it can glide. And of course, my bobbin. Well, we'll see if it keeps going, and it did. Thank you, Lord. And we're going to go all the way up to the peak. And we're going to go down. Make sure you are always hugging the side of your ruler. That's the most important thing. And then we're going to move this down a little farther. And I'm going to take this down to, this is, oops. Now, see what happened? It just skipped right out because my foot was still on the presser foot. So here's what we're going to do. This is easy. This is an easy fix. And I'm kind of glad things like this happen when I'm sewing with you, because I'm just going to drop this down so that my automatic, it cuts automatically for my bobbin. So I'm just going to move this around. So if something like that happens, all you have to do is realign this, because you still have your pin in there. So it's very easy to fix. This is crosshair number 2. This is crosshair number 3. And that's what I want, because I'm staying on my odds. And this is another reason that I color code and I use 2 different colors. So I'm just going to set this under. I'm going to put the scissors down before I stab myself. Pull up my bobbin thread. I like to use my stilettos to pull out my thread. I like to hold a big portion of the thread. And then I'm just going to sew this rotation. And because I pre-sewed some of the rotations, this portion is going to go very fast. So we're just, and then we just move over a little, and I still have only one more rotation that I have to do. And then we'll be done with this portion. So you would put in 8 rotations, even though you have the 16 lines. You're only putting in 8 rotations. We'll just get those threads out of here. I'll do my Eleanor Burns impression where she just, I don't know if any of you have been sewing and quilting that long, but she would just throw everything on the floor. And I remember my girlfriends and I used to just laugh. And so now every time it happens to me, I think of good old Eleanor and how she taught me it can be cleaned up later. All right, so here's my next odd. My line is lined up. I'm going to lift this and move it just a little bit, put it back down. Always double check. Always double check to make sure your line is lined up, because just the smallest of movement can push it out of place. So it's the old adage of measure twice and cut once. We all do that with piecing and with quilting. So I do the same thing with my ruler work. Okay, so before you take your ruler out, what I want you to do is I want you to count your rotations. So we have 1, 2, oh, I got to keep my finger on one of them, don't I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we have 8 rotations done. Therefore, I can stop. And I can take this out. Now, I'm not going to take the pin out. I never take the pin out. I leave that in there, and you'll see why. So we have that one is completed, and that's the start of your beautiful mandala. And I'm showing you this on a solid dark fabric with white thread because it's easier to see. If you're doing template work, I usually match my top thread to my top fabric, which makes it very hard to see when you're demonstrating. So that's why I like to work more on a dark fabric with white thread. Now, I just clipped a couple little threads around here, and I discovered something new about a year ago. Lint roller. Best $1.25 you will spend at the dollar store. All I have to do is roll that. I get all my threads picked up, and I don't have to be trying to pick up every little piece. So we're going to move on to the circles on quilts. This is going to form our circle around the outside perimeter of our piece. So this is what it's forming, is your circle. So this is so easy to use, but this is something that you want to experiment with because you can do this one of two ways. You can either use this so that you're moving your quilt away from you in a counterclockwise fashion, or you're moving your quilt towards you. And I suggest that you try this first on just a plain scrap quilting sandwich so you can see which one you prefer to do. So I'm going to place, because again, we have the pin placement. So I'm going to place the pin. Now I have found that I like pushing my piece away from me. So I can flip this template so that the writing side is down and there's only one hole to put it in. So you just stick it in that hole. And then it doesn't matter if you start at a crosshair line. I sometimes can be very anal, so I'll start at a crosshair line and do it. But it really doesn't matter if you do or not. Just drop this in, pull up your bobbin thread. We always have to pull up the bobbin thread. And I'm going to move this actually out of the way because that did not pull up my bobbin thread. There we go. And this is going to, you could put as many circles around this mandala as you would like. The sky's pretty much the limit. So I'm going to drop my needle back into position. And now I can move this back. And I'm going to just, let me turn that light down. Unfortunately, it is wintertime and it is getting dark at 4:30 every day. Luckily, the snow, well, I shouldn't say luckily, the snow was gone this morning. We got about 3 inches of snow, and I was like a little kid in a candy shop. I was so excited about it until I had to go clear off my car. So the snow's gone for a little bit. Here's a couple of different ways. This is my personal preference. Because we have the pin over here, I don't want this to jump. So I like to place a hand down the length of the template. And then I like to push the quilt away from me. And again, if you're doing the template, then you are going to do this in a smaller stitch. Okay, hang on 1 second, because of course this happens whenever you're teaching live. I have to just open and close my bobbin door. Stacy, do we have any questions yet?
No, not at this time. I am not seeing any questions. It just looks like people are loving the designs.
Okay, good. I hope I'm not putting anybody to sleep. All right, so let me just get my bobbin back in there. And then we'll continue with this circle. This circle, the circles on quilts template is really, it is absolutely astounding the different designs that you can do with this. So hand placement, I'm holding on to this portion and I'm just gently pushing it away. And this also, your hand placement for your left hand, that's also, see how it's kind of holding and smoothing down my block? That also helps in aiding a nice smooth circle, because sometimes you'll work on a circle and you'll be like, what did I do wrong and how did it possibly jump? And there's just no rhyme or reason as to why that happens. So this is just another way that it will just hold everything in place the way it should. I'm not going super fast, but I'm not going super slow. I just want to make sure that when I do my template, that my stitches are going to be on the small side. So I'm speeding this up because this is a sample and this is not template. I've already pre-done the template that I'll be showing you how to cut out. I'm also using a good quality thread, and I cannot stress to you the importance of using a good quality thread. It is very important. So that is, let's see, did I get to the end? Yep, I got to the end. So there completes one circle. Now I'm just going to take a couple stitches in place. I'm going to lift my presser foot and I am going to just move this down to my next position, which is the 14.5 mark. And I'm going to continue. I'm going to keep my hand so that it's holding everything down nicely. And I'm just going to move this around because I'm going to show you a couple different design options that are not on my original mandala, but that you can do just combining different ideas, which a lot of that, I get my best ideas when I'm either lying in bed, scrolling through YouTube or Pinterest, or I'm in the shower. I get great ideas. So I'm just going to show you a couple of different ones that we can do. And we're almost done with this. See how fast it goes with these circles? These circles are definitely worth their weight in gold because there are so many different things you can use them for. That's what I love about Sew Steady rulers is there's not just one way to use the rulers. There's many different ways to use them. So this I can just pull out. We'll pull that up. We'll reposition the camera and you can see the nice circle that it made all the way around. And now we're going to put in our smallest design. So we already worked on the on the odd numbers of our crosshairs. Now we're going to work on the even numbers of our crosshairs. And let me just grab one. So what I do with this is, now this is, we're going to place this so that, and excuse me while I turn on yet another light. It's the one thing I don't like about wintertime is that it gets dark, and I have a studio that is filled with such great natural light that it's hard transitioning to the winter because I don't have all that natural light. I'm just totally focused on all the artificial light I can pull in. So what I did was I marked the line that we're going to follow on our crosshairs like we did the last one. Only this is more of a free form. So I'm going to go up to, and it doesn't matter what number you start at. I'm starting at number 14. As long as I know it's an even number, I'm good. So I'm going to take my ruler and I am going to lay it down so that the pencil line that I just put in, or the marker line I just put in, is on my crosshair line. That's the most important thing. I am going to lay the top of my template resting on my inner circle. And when I do that, all I have to do is I want to mark where I am going to start sewing, which is down here because we're not using a pin. So I'm just going to make a little mark, and that's where I'm going to start sewing for the small fire. So then I'm going to come around and I'm going to do the same thing. Just make sure your crosshair lines are lined up. Put a little marking. You can do a dot. You can do a long line like that, whatever you can see the best. You can move this up farther if you wanted to. You could let them float. The sky is pretty much the limit, but this is a design that I found was very pleasing to start with. So I'm just going around all my even crosshairs, lining up my marked line on the ruler, putting in my small lines. And I'm not going to do all of these because you'll get the gist, because there's so much more to move on to show you. So we're going to put this, we'll go back here to the one that I started with the dot. And I am going to drop my needle in, and I like to do this. I think that's too glary. So we're going to turn it this way, and that won't glare as much. So I'm going to use my flywheel, and I'm just going to drop my needle right in the center of that line, put down my presser foot, lift up my thread, pull that over. There. And especially if you're using a finer thread in your bobbin, you might want to try it with a stiletto. It's just easier. So I have my needle back dropped in there. All I have to do, because our new rulers are amazing, they have these little slots that are so easy to use. So I'm going to drop that back in, and I'm going to start sewing right below the pin. But I have to make sure, so we're going to turn it this way so y'all can see it a little bit better. And we're going to turn this so that, and it's harder to see with the small ruler right now, but I'm turning this so that my line that I drew in is going to be right on my crosshair line. Yeah, that's a little better. So hold my threads. And again, practice each one of these templates. They work like a dream, and you're going to get super pointy shapes that are going to be fantastic. Now, I finished that one, and because I don't want to have to keep cutting my threads and moving around the block, I am going to keep my threads connected and move on to my next even crosshair number. All I have to do is lift my needle, lift my presser foot, and move. So I'm going to move over to number 16, and I'm going to drop my needle right in that spot that I marked using my flywheel. So I have that, and I'm afraid I have to put this up because otherwise I can't see. My straight line is lined up to my crosshair, and I'm just going to drop this one in. And my thread became unthreaded, so it'll just take me a second to do that. Now, in the meantime, let me just tell you a little bit about the template method. The template method is one of my favorite methods because you can add so much color and design elements. I just need to push this over here a little so I can see to thread. And I apologize, but I have to turn the light on my machine or we will be here all day with me threading this. So what I was starting to say was I love the template method because it does add a lot of movement to your designs. But make sure that you have, in case I forget to tell you later, make sure that you have a couple of pairs of sharp scissors and a sharp seam ripper. And the reason for that is because you have your top layer, which has the fusible on the back, so it's a little bit thicker. So you want a nice set. And when I say nice set, I don't mean expensive. I used to buy the $25 acrylics seam rippers because I love them. They're beautiful. But then in a pinch, I went to my local store because I needed a sharper seam ripper. And I bought the cheapest one I could find. And let me tell you, it did the trick. It did beautiful work. So you don't need to have the most expensive ones. You just need something that's really, really sharp. So we're going to move this back into position. And again, always double check your positions. Oh, I love it when the machine is smarter than I am. Okay. So we'll start this over again. And the thread did not come up. Does this happen to other people or is it just me, Stacy? That like everything seems to go afoul when I'm teaching live. All right, we are almost there, and then I am going to start showing you some of the cool design elements before we move on to the actual template quilting and bias, and we get going. So we're dropping back into that hole. I'm just going to move this totally out of the way and pull up my thread first. Came up on the first try. All right, there we go. And this is why, there, back in position, we're using the little slit. We're lining up our lines. There you go. So we're lining up our lines. Make sure you're still on an even rotation and your line is lined up. And then I'm going to stop right about there because my threads are above and below and I just want to get those out of the way. I don't know where this big pair of scissors came from, but that's fine. So you're going to go around your whole quilt, your whole block, and just finish up all these designs. We'll do one more. And I'll just lift it, and then I'm going to cut my threads afterwards. And I usually cut my threads right afterwards. And the reason I do that is because you have the long thread on top, which is very easy to see. But on the bottom, you have a long thread too. So if you are continually working, you don't want that to catch into anything else. See how graceful this fire is? I love, love, love it. And we'll do one more. Keep it lifted up and drop in. And always start and stop with just a couple straight stitches to lock in your stitches in place. Because when you're doing free motion and you're controlling your stitch length, you don't have the added feature of if you were doing piecing. And with piecing, it always locks in place a few stitches at a time. And you don't have that when you're doing the free motion. So that's why you really want to make sure you stop and start. So let's move this back. And you can see all of my threads are connected. So we're going to take and get, I have scissors everywhere. So I'm just going to cut in between, kind of hold them up so you can get a close cut. So we've got those all cleaned up. I'm going to use my handy dandy little lint roller. I like to keep it clean. And that's just because sometimes I'm anal. Other times I'm not. Now, this is harder to see because of the fabric I used underneath. So I am just running my hands along. And here we go. So as soon as you find one, you're going to find the rest. And you just go along and you cut them. And then you can use your lint roller so you don't have to worry. And now that's all nice and clean for your next set of designs. Now comes the fun part. We are going to do, and I'm just going to work on this half of it, but we are going to put in some scallops. And okay, so this is the scallop that we're going to put in. And we're just going to put it all the way around. And it's very, very easy to do. We're going to use our 12-inch arc. And that's all we're going to use. So with the 12-inch arc, you can do one of two things. You can use the ruler stickers, which I absolutely love, or you can use a marker. And I think we're going to use both because of this being a dark fabric. So let's start with the ruler stickers. Ruler stickers come, you will never go through this whole pack in a lifetime. It comes with 192 reusable ruler stickers. So you do the math. I have had these since So Steady came out with them, and I use them continuously, and I still have a ton left over, and I can share them with my friends. So I am going to put on the center line of the ruler, I am going to put a set of ruler stickers. And I'm just going to put 2 of them on here so that I know exactly where the line is. If I wasn't working on such a dark fabric, then I could use my markers very easily. But I'm just going to put these on. And my line is right there. So I'm going to put these on like so. And we'll put the ruler stickers to the side. And then I'm also going to, I'm sorry I keep jarring the camera. I'm also going to do, I'm looking for a white marker, but I'm having a hard time finding one. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to follow this center line. Again, we're using all 16 lines of our crosshairs. We're going to place, and it doesn't matter which one you place it on. Just remember if it's the odds or the evens. So I'm holding up the even, a number 12. And you just cut these threads. This is where I jumped. And so I can just cut that thread away. So I'm starting on a number, I take it back. That's a number 1. So if my center line on my ruler is on line number 1, then both sides of my ruler where I'm going to sew from and to is going to be the 2 opposites that are my even numbers. So I am going to lay this down so that it will, let me get my seam, my spacing gauge. So this is where our spacing gauge comes in. We're going to put the center line of our 12-inch arc on line number 1, which is the odds. And we're going to sew from this line to this line. And we want to drop our needle right in the bottom part of the circle. So we're going to start with that. We're going to drop the needle there. And then we're going to move on from there, and you'll see how easy it is. So my needle is dropped in there. I'm going to bring up my thread. Now there's no foot to put under. There's no template to put under because I'm going to be working with the outer perimeter of the 12-inch arc. This is another one of my favorite rulers because of the versatility of it, and you will use it time and time again. So I'll hold the threads over to one side. We're going to move the camera over a little bit so you can see. We're going to put the center line of the foot over this center line here. And then we want this to drop on the other crosshair. I'm going to use my spacing gauge for that so that I know exactly how I want this ruler to line up. So there my ruler is lined up to perfection. I'm going to hold this and I'm just going to sew from crosshair to crosshair. Try doing this with the camera in front of you. And I'm going to stop right there, and that put in the first scallop. I'm simply going to go around the whole quilt, and it doesn't take long because it's only 8 rotations. We're going to go around that, and we're going to do the next one. So we're going to turn this so that everybody's got a good view. My center line is on my center crosshair line. And I'm using my spacing gauge for the side I'm going to. I'm butting the spacing gauge right up against where I want the needle to drop in. So again, double check this line and your 2 side lines, and then just sew. And you're going to do this all the way around the quilt. Or I shouldn't say the quilt, the block. You're going to do this all the way around the block. And all you ever have to worry about is sinking it in to the right spot. Holding your ruler, and your 12-inch arc should have the stable tape on it. Just make sure that when you put stable tape on any of our rulers, do not cover over the grid lines that you see, because all of those grid lines have a purpose. And so you don't want to cover over those. Now this line's a little bit on the light side because I've been working with this a lot. And so my thread is, oh, that stopped. So you know what? We're going to stop there because my thread came undone. I have a brand new spool of ortho thread in here. And I'm thinking that I had adjusted everything, but I'm thinking that I need to adjust a little bit further. So let me rethread this because I've put in some of the scallops here, but I also want to show you how you can create secondary designs within your 2 lines of your circle. So one of the things that Shanna was showing before was how you can combine rulers that you already have to create more design elements. And one of the best ways I know to do that is to use my stitching line discs and my design pad. I absolutely love them, and I design a lot of what I do. I design it ahead of time on paper, and I'll pull over some of my designs and show you. Because my second camera wasn't working, unfortunately, I can't go back to the back side of my machine until I finish showing you all the sewing aspects. But once we do that, we'll be cutting behind and you'll be able to see. I have a little table set up right behind my machine, and that's where I like to do my cutting because I'm able to twist things around. It was like what Donelle was saying when she was showing you the template method. It's really easy if you have a flat surface that you're working on, like a dining room table, or I have a little table in my sewing room that I use. So I'm just going to rethread this. So one of the things that you could use very easily that I really like is any of the simple circles, because you can put little circles or half-inch circles, 1-inch circles. You can put them in a lot of different places on these designs. And this is how you make it your own. You can just easily throw in designs using the rulers that you already own. So I'm just darkening up my lines here because I want to show you how another way that you can use the 12-inch arc to lay in more designs. So basically I'm just going over with my chalk pencil all my crosshairs just to darken those up a little bit. The numbers really don't matter anymore at this point, but I just want to show you how you can really work with the 12-inch arc, which is back where it belongs on my rack. So we're going to start. We'll start down here just to show you what I mean. I want to put a secondary design into my two circles. You can do it one of two ways. You can put a straight diagonal line across, and I'm just going to draw this in, but if you were using your stitching line discs, you would put that up against it. So that would be just to put straight little lines in. So we're going to start with that design first, because that's one of the easiest. So what we're going to do is, let's get you back in position. And we'll lift this up. And you can even throw in the thing I love about the fire, and I'm going to start combining it now with the ice. But the thing I love about the fire is the different sizes that you can do. The different size, you have 4 different templates to choose from, and you can use those. As I was saying at the beginning of our class, was that I'm going to be doing Christmas gifts this coming weekend, because first weekend in December, I'm way behind schedule, as I'm sure I'm not the only one. But I'm going to be using the different sizes. For instance, one of the things I'm making for Christmas gift this year are zippered totes. And I have designs that are perfect and flowery and whatnot, but I'm going to be making zip totes for some of the men in my life because they have asked for them. Every couple of years, they want new ones. So I plan on using the fire and the ice designs for that because it's can be feminine as well as masculine. So that's one of the things. And once I do this, I will put it on the Sew for Less Facebook group. So what I'm doing here is I wrote in that line, so I can't really show you on this one. I'll show you on the next one. I'll just follow that line down. And I basically am going from crosshair to crosshair. So then I'm going to turn this, and I want to end up right in this spot. In order to do that, what do I have to have? I have to have my spacing gauge. So we're going to lay this down, and I put my spacing gauge. I have about 5 spacing gauges, to be very honest with you, because I love them. I use them all. I have them at different machines in my house. I have them in my travel bag. I'm going to lay my spacing gauge. Now you've got your 1/8 of an inch, your 1/2 of an inch, your 1/4 of an inch, and your full inch. And I've used the other ones, but the one I use the most is my 1/4 of an inch, because that depicts my ruler foot. So I want to go from here to up here. I have to lay my spacing gauge down right at the point where I want it to drop the needle in. So in order to hold it like that, and then I can do this one-handed because it's so easy. Drop it there. I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to lay it back down, and I want it to drop in to that hole. So I'm just going to go back this way. Now, something else that you can do, we're going to put a couple more in, but then I'm going to show you how to use the echo part of it. And then we're going to move on to the fun part of finishing the Fiery Day mandala. So we'll just put in a couple more lines, combining our different looks and our different rulers. All right, so I'm going to stop right there at that corner, and we're going to turn this around. And you can see the secondary design that this made. So it is, we'll lift it up. Oh, my foot's always on that. It shouldn't be. So see how it made the scallop, and then you have the 2 peaks. I want to go back, and I want to put in another line just using my grid line. So I'm going to lay this. Let's see the best way to turn this for your viewing pleasure. Okay, we're going to turn it like this, and I want to lay my ruler up against the straight edge. So I'm going to lift up my needle, and I'm going to put my ruler in place, and I'm going to move down until I'm touching the outer perimeter of my circle. And then I'm just going to come down, and basically what I'm doing is I'm echoing that line. We're going to do the same thing on this side. We're just going to lay it down so that my straight edge is right against my sewn line. And we're just going to go up, and we're going to stop. And I can keep going with that. But I want to get on to finishing up the mandala. So let's move this out, show you. These are just a few things that you can do. You can do the scallops. You can do the lines. You can connect your crosshair line to make a secondary design. So this is just playing with this absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous template. So let me set up my other area so that I can show you how to do the actual cutaway. And Stacy, do we have any questions coming in? I feel like I'm boring everybody since nobody's asking anything.
No, I think that they're loving this design though. It looks like we had a question in regards to taking advantage of the last class. Just remember that this class will be free with the purchase of the launch bundle, which is both getting the fire and the ice for the 20% off along with the class. That deal is good through the this coming Sunday. So we just have through the weekend to decide if this is a must-have for you, which I am, absolutely loving all of the designs that I see today. So I think it's going to be a must-have for a lot of you.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Other than that, looks like you're spinning us around your room. I love it.
I
We
am.
just
You're seeing all my mess
we
and its
just we just
glory.
got a tour.
Oh God.
Ooh, I love this design too. That's amazing.
This is using the 5.5 inch, the 5.5 inch flame, the fire,
Okay.
and using the same circles on quilts that I used before. The one I used was the 16.5 to 12.5. And for this one, I did my inner line is at 12.5 and my outer line is at 14.5. This is the design that I decided is going on. I am making, I'm teaching a class coming up in the spring, and I'm doing summer tote bags for the beach. And this is the design that I decided on because I just love the movement of it. So I plan on using a very contrasting thread. I'm not going to be doing any template to it because I think the design just speaks for itself.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I agree. So yeah, no, I think that overall this is definitely something that we've got a lot of people that are super excited about. So I say just keep it up. Keep it up.
Yay. We have a little while longer coming on. So this was done with 16 rotations of the fire in the 5.5 inch template. So that's why it's it's more dense than the others. And this is what I like about it, is because to me, this lends beautifully. You don't have to do any template. I'm just going to do it on tote bags and they're going to be gorgeous. I'm also going to be doing some coloring with paints. I did a Zoom class not too long ago for Garden of Capri, and I am going to be doing, this is one of the designs I've picked out for 2024, where I'm going to be painting fabric and using colored pencils and watercolors for all the
Mm,
different little designs. So this ruler template set is definitely, I think, a must-have in everybody's arsenal. So let's put that aside. This is going to be our finished piece, but I wanted to show you how to cut this out. So I started cutting this out because I knew it would take too long to do in one class. With this design, all I did was the scallops. I decided I didn't want to do anything in between, but now looking at it, it looks plain and I should have. But now that I've already started cutting away, there's nothing I can do. I still do have my pin in the center because up in these corners, I decided I wanted to add circles, but my circle templates were out in my garage because I had to bring in all the Christmas stuff. So I put that out in the back. So I have to wait until I go outside when it's all nice and cleared out. And I'm going to put circles. So I left my pins in the center until I'm absolutely done with it. But to start cutting this out, the first thing that I do is I grab the felt tipped erasable markers, because what I want to do, I want to mark all of the spots that I'm going to cut away. The reason I do this beforehand is because I do a lot of template quilting, but and Stacy knows just what I'm going to say. Sometimes you get on a roll and you cut away the wrong thing. So this is what I use. So I just make little marks, little X's wherever I want to cut something out. And that way I'm not going to hopefully make a mistake. So we'll just put this down a little farther. You can see all my little X's. Then you're going to use a strong, you're going to use a lot of different scissors, to be honest with you. I like duckbill scissors because because of the shape of them, they can be flat on your piece, but your fingers are raised. So you're going to get a nice close cut. So I like to use the duckbill scissors, and I have them in a couple different sizes. I have them in the 4.5 inch, and then I have them in the full size, which I think is probably 8 inches. So I use those. I also use blunt, and here, I'll show you my little case. This is what I keep out by my TV in my living room, because I have everything I need is in here. I have marking tools. I have blunt, small embroidery scissors. I have sharp, small embroidery scissors. Everything. Oh, and I have a paintbrush because I have paintbrushes all around my house. And I also have a sharpening block, which I find sometimes that I need to sharpen my scissors because I'm constantly using them. So I have this handheld that is for sharpening. And then I've had this block for, I can't tell you how many years. You can see how well loved it is. But these are, if you just need to sharpen your scissors quickly, this is a good tool to have. And you just do it like so. And you can find things on YouTube too that will show you how to sharpen them. So I like to keep things all together in this nice little round vase. Compliments of the Dollar Tree, my favorite store. So Stacy, you're laughing at me. It's not hard, right? Stacy and I have gotten to know each other over the years, and she's used to my quirky ways. This is one of the cheap seam rippers that I told you about. This works great. So you're going to go in. Now remember, you only want to cut the top layer. So I like to feel it over on the side because it does have a little thickness to it. Has a little thickness to it that you don't get in your other layers. So what you want to do, the easiest way to cut into this is I like to hold it up, and I like to first I stick my hand under here, and I like to hold it up, and I like to just go back and forth and just kind of pick at it until I can get my seam ripper under the top fabric. And I can pretty much feel that it's just going to be one layer. And if you don't feel that it's just going to be one layer and you cut through 2 layers, don't worry, because I'm going to show you how to fix that. So see, that's just putting a little tiny cut into it. Once you do that, go around all of your pieces and just put your slits in. And that one I can tell I have way too much in there, so I know that's not going to work. So I'm just going to pick at it a little bit. You can rub it back and forth. You'll find your method that works well for you. If you cut through 2 layers, don't worry. If you cut right through to your batting, don't worry about it. I'll show you how to fix it. It's very easy. So you're going to cut as many little spots as you want. I still have my needle in the center, and I'm going to leave that there until I'm done with all my designing. And then I'm going to take any one of my scissors, but we'll start with the small duckbills, and I'm going to put it in the hole, And I'm just going to, now these scissors need to be sharpened. You can see they're not going anywhere. So I need to put those off to the side because I keep putting them back in my container and I don't want to do that. So let's just grab another pair. You're going to put these up against, and you can either hold this in your hand like so and follow. Okay, I'm going to lose you guys for a second, but then I'll be right back. Oh, I didn't lose you. Okay.
We're
Just
here.
follow the path of your stitching line. And this is why you wanted to put in a little bit of a tighter stitching line. I'm going to lay this down here for a minute and work this way. And I'll start with the bigger scissors and then we'll move to the smaller scissors. So this, if I lay it down, I can easily just flip it around and it just makes it so much easier to cut into. But I'm going to move to a smaller pair of scissors because those I'm finding are too big for the little areas. Something I wanted to show you too was the fact that some of these spots are so narrow that it's going to be hard to get your scissors in and just cut away the spots. And I'll show you what I mean in a second, because I'm going to show you a way that you can make the spots a little bit wider. Don't forget, you're working with a fusible web underneath. And so when you're all done with your design element, you can very easily just fuse everything down. You can fuse things that aren't there, and you can fuse things that you're going to exaggerate a little. For instance, you see how tiny, tiny, tiny that channel is right there? What I'm going to do is, let me cut that away. I'm going to take really sharp scissors. Let me turn this and we'll start a new channel so that you can see. Here's one. All right, so I am going to go in. Sometimes I don't even have to use the seam ripper. I can just slip my scissors in. And this is a sharp, pointy pair of scissors because I want to get up into this channel that you can see right now with the way I've got this turned. I want to get up into that channel as far as I can go. And I just will pull this back and hang on. It's like you get to know your scissors too. So you're going to know what scissors you want to go to. And neither of those pairs are the ones I want. And I know I have them right here. We're going to try cutting this up a little bit further with the seam ripper. Oh yeah, that's the way to go. So see, that seam ripper cut it all the way up, but you can't really tell that because of the fact that it is so, the stitching is so tight on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel this back like that. And when you do this, you can also just trim away. If you trim into your stitching line on something this minute, it is absolutely fine because all of your fabric surrounding it, all of your top white fabric that's surrounding it has got fusible on it. So when you do go for your final ironing, it's all right because you're going to fuse everything else around it and it's going to stay down. Okay, just found the other pair that I really wanted. These little fiskers are the sharpest scissors, the little orange handled fiskers. So you're going to go in here and you're just going to peel it back. And if you want more of that design to show, go right into where your stitches are and just pull it back a little bit more and take a little bit more off the top of the top fabric. And that'll leave a bigger design for you to go around. So now this, we're going to turn this. And if I didn't have my my design pad underneath it, it would turn a lot easier because it's just plain wood underneath it. So we're going to turn this. And we're going to go down into this channel. And then you can keep turning it, or you can stick your finger under there and you can just go right along your stitching line. If you're doing a bigger area, like the big circle up here, this is already cut into. So for this, I can use a little bigger set of scissors. And again, I'm using my duckbills. And I'm just going around one side. So I'm going to cut around this whole one side, and then I'll peel it all back, and I'll go in the opposite direction. And this is just quick, quick, quick. In fact, I won't go all the way around, but I will stop it there so you can see what I mean about peeling it back. So then I can hold it up like this, and I can get close to my stitching line and just keep going around. If you cut into your stitching line, we're going to fix that very easily. If you don't get close enough, you're going to go back when you're all done and you're going to give it a final once over. And you're going to see, you'll find little spots. You'll see how easy that just pulled away. These big pieces I like to keep. I keep them in a little Rubbermaid container. And the reason I do that is because of what I'll be showing you next is if I need to put in a piece. So this, I'm just going to do my scallop. And the scallops are connected. So you have to do every scallop separately. But these are so easy to do. When I do template, if I have an intricate design, I will not start on the smallest and I will not start on the largest. I will start on a medium design. And let me just grab something so that I can show you what I'm talking about.
There was a question that came in. Someone said, I'm not understanding how duckbill scissors work.
This is a small template that I did. And you can see that it doesn't have a lot of teeny weeny spots, but like these designs are smaller and there's even smaller designs in the center that I haven't cut out with. So what I would do to start with this is I would start my medium. And that way I get my feet wet and get used to cutting away and seeing what it looks like. Then I would go into the smaller designs or go into the larger designs. So I don't always start with this. I don't always start at the center and work my way out because the center is usually the smaller designs. So I start in the middle, work my way in and work my way out. But that's just the template design and how beautiful it can be. So I'm going to cut into, because I want to show you how easy it is to fix. I'm just going to we'll cut this one first. We'll move this down. We'll flip it around. I find that when you hold the opposite side up a little, you can get Okay, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, here we go. So if you hold it up, you can get pretty close into your line, and you may not have to make as many adjustments afterwards. But I'm just going to go off. Okay. So you can see on that actually doesn't look too bad, but there's a lot of flapping in here. So to go in and trim it, I like to hold it up and trim. Again, I apologize. Okay. So trim this so that it looks even. It doesn't have to be super thin, because whatever is still a little loose, when you iron it down, it's going to adhere. So you don't have to worry about it, but you can always go back. Now, I purposely went in here so that I cut through my peekaboo fabric straight through down to my batting. This is such an easy fix. What I like to do is, first of all, I like to just kind of tuck it in and lay it down, and then take a small piece of your fusible web, which I'm going to grab another piece of fusible web, and I'm going to cut a small piece of my fusible, and it's all paper backed. So you're going to have the paper on the back, but you're going to separate the paper from the actual web. Okay, and that's just leaving me my web. Now this piece is a little bit too big, but what you're going to do is you're going to take either a set of tweezers, or I'm going to take my stiletto, and I'm going to put this down so I get really close. Here is where my hole is that I did this. So I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to tuck it into the slit that I made. I'm going to tuck one side in first, and then I'm going to hold it down with my thumb, and then I'm going to tuck the other side in. And that's just putting a lot of fusible web in there. And once you flatten this out and you iron over it, you're never going to see it. Most important thing you want to do, though, when you're doing this, is you want to take a straight pin and you want to mark exactly where you did that. Because when we go to iron this down, we're going to iron all of these little areas that will need a little more love and attention before we do the whole big piece. So it's important that you do put down a pin just so that you know where it is. Now, the other thing that you can do, and I am going to do this on another block, if you cut away your top layer and you cut it too close and you ended up cutting off the top layer, we're just going to pull some of this off, and you don't have any top layer left and it just looks absolutely ridiculous. Sorry. Okay, see how super thin that is? Normally that wouldn't bother me, but I want to show you how to fix it. So from your bigger pieces that you had cut away, this is why I keep them. Feel and make sure that you're on the correct side. So this is the right side of the fabric because it's got my crosshair, and this is the wrong side. You're going to lay this down and you're just going to get an idea for making that line a little bit thicker. So I'm going to start and do this kind of on a curve just to see if I have this correct or not. And this is why I hang on to all these little pieces. So then if I lay that down, there, done, fixed. So again, put a pin in it. Don't worry about that it's lined up right now, because you are going to line it up again once you get your iron out. And just stick a pin in there so you know that this is an area that you need to give a little more attention to when you go to fuse. And then the other area that we just did up in here. So you're going to continually cut away all of your design elements. You can do different design elements and cut away different portions of it, which doesn't sound like it makes sense, but I am going to show you my messy room again, but I'm going to show you a quilt that I did. And let me just lift it up. Okay, that is called Starlight Starbright. And that is done using 4 blocks, but 2 of those blocks are identical. The 2 top blocks are identical. The difference is where I cut it away. So you can get totally different looks depending on where you cut things away. And that is absolute proof, because they do look very different unless you get really close and look at them.
So, it looks like we are just wrapping up at this point. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Can
So
I have
you
2 more minutes?
absolutely.
All right. I want to show you how to turn this into a mandala. And I have found that the easiest way for me, you can do this one of 2 ways, and this is in the instructions that are written out. You can either rotary cut an even line around your block, or I like to do it with a pair of scissors. And the reason I like to do it with the scissors is because I feel I have much more control. So what you would do is, I normally will do about 1 inch, and you can either mark it or you can eyeball it, and you would just keep your quilt on a flat surface, and you would just, with a very sharp pair of scissors, you would start cutting this design out. And that's going to leave you with a total circle. When you fuse your template, I would suggest fusing it first. After you get all your designs cut out, go back, trim up, fix up like I just showed you, get out a hot dry iron or a medium dry iron, depending on what fusible you use, and press, starting in the middle, press up and down, press, working your way out. Once you have that done, then you can go in with either a rotary cutter or a pair of scissors, and you can cut away into your circular mandala shape. You're going to make binding, and you're going to make bias binding. Bias binding because you are going around curves. So you have to make sure a straight edge binding doesn't give. The bias binding has a stretch to it and it gives. So you're going to take your binding, you're going to lay it so that the wrong sides of your binding are up against your mandala. And you're going to take binder clips, World's Greatest Invention Since Sliced Bread, and you're going to binder clip this around. And then you are going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance with a smaller stitch, maybe a size 2 length. You're going to sew that around. And that way, when you take off your binder clips, you can flip your binding over. And I also suggest in my instructions that you use to start with, you use a 2.5-inch strip, so that when you fold this over, you will have enough on the back side where, again, you will hit it with your binding clips, and the back will be a little overhang more than the front. And then all you have to do is stitch right in the ditch, and it will catch the back of your binding. So that's my quick and easy method for binding, because I used to hand sew binding, and yeah, I don't do that anymore. I don't have time or the patience. So that wraps up my class. Were there any other questions, Stacy, that I should answer first?
I think we got them all. I think that there was a question, but I think it had more to do with just maybe some of the audio visual. And so that is wrapped up. I did post a couple links to remember that you can enter to win the ice by going onto our Facebook page. If you go ahead and find the enter to win the ice post on there, I've just actually posted another link to that so you can access it through the link on the screen. And you should be able to go ahead and enter to win the ice templates. We've got a special deal going where if you purchase the fire and ice together through the weekend, then you'll get 20% off, and you'll get this amazing class by Diane. So you're going to get both of those options. I also did share a link to the sunflower class. That was the class that we watched just before this one, the Fiery Sunflowers by Shanna. So you're able to go ahead and jump in there and get some awesome education on that one and make those cute sunflower projects. That's going to be some great table toppers too.
Yeah.
So I think that wraps it up. I'm super excited. We're gonna of course have one more launch live tomorrow, and that's going to be on our new Angel templates. That live is at 1 p.m. our regularly scheduled template tasting time. But we've got 2 amazing educators coming on. Actually, 3 amazing educators coming on tomorrow to take part
Ooh,
in that. So yeah, I think it's going to be another great day
I'll be
of
watching.
sharing some fun new designs. So tomorrow will be our angel wings, and definitely want to join us for Helen Sullivan and Kathy Clausen, and again Donelle McAdams sharing some awesome designs with those. So thank you all so much for joining us for Sew for Less's Fire and Ice templates. And we'll look forward to having you join us again for more fun education coming up the rest of the week. Look for replays on this through the weekend as well, and take advantage of that special offer. Thank you again so much, Diane, for coming on and sharing your amazing designs and class with us. And we'll look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.